Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. At a slightly uncomfortable angle I might add, sorry about that. I'm feeling loved up. I'm wearing sunglasses because I'm blinded by love and or a killer hangover, take your pick. And I decided I wanted to do a love reading, but a little bit different to how the ones out there are operating, just because, you know, the Aquarian ascendant is what you do, innit? Just want to piss people off. No, there is more to it than that. So firstly, I should say we're looking at your future spouse. The word spouse, I know, is a bit problematic, a bit general. I don't mean for it to be comp-het. I don't mean for you to end up with just one person if that's not your bag. This is just talking about your primary, your anchor, the person you spend the longest time with. In some cases, the person that you marry and have babies with, but in other cases, the head of your anarchist community on a barge. So yeah, let's start by saying that spouse is a very loose term in this, but you know what I mean, you know what I'm getting at. Then we're looking at what it is you fucking hate about them. So why are we doing that? Well, I have a theory about different levels of love that's sort of crystallised over the last couple of years. I feel like there's statements you can make like, I love chips, or I love this colour, and that can be a very genuine kind of love. And then there's a bit up from that, like, I love this family member, etc. And that can be something that people marry on and are quite happy to sort of deal with. And then there's like the top tier of love, which I think is completely unconditional. And I think that if you truly love someone at that level, and again, not everyone finds it, but I feel like they can do pretty much fucking anything to you and you'll still adore them, want the best for them, kind of wish you end up with them, whether or not you do. Hi twin flame journey people. Hey, this is Lucy Lannon in the editing room. I just want to make a quick clarifier because I heard how that sounded. I do not condone abuse dynamics, especially under the twin flame banner. Everyone that you're with should meet your standards for a partner, and that means that they don't physically or emotionally abuse you. The sort of unconditional love that I'm referring to is the type of love where your feelings don't fluctuate if a partner pisses you off in a mild way, chooses something other than you, including other people sometimes in the sort of journey to each other, or indeed takes their life in a different direction than what you would have chosen. I think lesser forms of love sometimes involve us kind of going off a person if we find out that they have a particular interest or want to take things down a different road, whereas unconditional love, as I'm sort of specifying it here, that's just not the case. You just kind of know that they're your person. And that's very different from saying that somebody can mistreat you because you believe them to be a twin flame. If you really are for somebody and they're for you in that romantic way that spouse ideally, without all the legal historical bullshit attached to it, all the politics, you know, it's what it ideally means in a perfect world, right? I think it's that kind of unconditional love. And so I want to explore how your partner, ideally, will drive you up the fucking wall, will drive you spare, will make you feel like you're losing your mind if you're living with them or in close quarters or whatever. The things that they will do that will niggle you and make you unsure as to whether you made the right decision in the first place, very occasionally. But overall, also the idiosyncrasies that mark them out as yours, you know? Because I think when we look back on our key relationships as well, some of the stuff that they do that pisses us off is the stuff that we remember with a certain level of fondness, right? And I want to get to that as well. I want some nice loved up vibes, and sometimes it's the things that people do that annoy you that strangely give you that feeling. So, for my couples, I would advise watching this alone first, just in case. But if you do want to watch in a couple, you're brave and well done. And you're perfectly welcome to, it'll work for that. For my singles, if you're looking, this might give you more of a clue or narrow it down between people if you're choosing, I see you. If you are under 18, firstly, why the fuck are you looking at a spouse reading? Go have some fun. Secondly, it might not be for you because we do cover all aspects of a relationship, and that includes decks that look at sex, look at kink, that speak about things that your precious little ears should not be taking in on YouTube, at least from a legal perspective, to cover my ass, right? So if you would, whether or not you're sexually active, I would prefer if you look elsewhere on my channel, or indeed elsewhere on the tube for your next love reading. That said, likes, subscriptions, etc. are very much appreciated. I kind of need to boost my algo at the minute because I've had a long time off this particular channel doing things elsewhere, servers, etc. So the YouTube and Etsy link that you'll find here are like new but not new. Like I'm not new, but they could do with a boost. So yeah, share it with whoever you think would enjoy it. And trying to think if there's any other disclaimers, things to say. Oh yeah, if you find yourself within a pile, it might just be an indicator that you're very much in your own energy right now, that it's not a time for you to be dating, or that you've found your person and need to concentrate on self-improvement or something like that. I hope that I don't insult you if that's the case. But if you do find something you're thinking, this sounds like me, then it probably is. But for most of you, hopefully you'll find your person in here. And like I say, it's a good way to narrow them down. It's a good way to be appreciative of them in a kind of backwards Uranian fashion, which I do enjoy. Yeah, without further ado, let's get to the selection of piles. Okay, pile 1 is the Tarot of the Divine. The Lover's card in that deck looks like this. Pile 2 is the Manara Sexually Explicit Tarot. Does contain CNC and some other stuff that you may not quite like, so be aware of that, and I will obscure some cards because of the nature of the deck, but that's the Lovers. Pile 3, the Black and Gold Smith-Waite. Pile 4 for you DC Comics and Vertigo fans, the Vertigo Tarot. Pile 5, the Aquarian Tarot. And pile 6, the beloved Marseille, back and not for a mini, and the Lovers look like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll see you in your pile. Pile 1, let's shuffle, shall we? Pile 1. May I say that I think I'm just as in love with your person, sorry. There may be a bit of communicative blipping in this one because we've got this Mercury retrograde card here. These are the overall energies of your person. There are 2 in each of these piles, except for this one, because they insisted on coming in at the end and saying, but I give you this though, please don't hate me. I think actually they are a very sensitive individual and that they might even be a little bit, what's the word? A little nervous about you having this kind of reading on them if they knew or if they know, if indeed you are already in a couple or whatever. But it's such a sweet energy. It's very much the energy of somebody who is so intent on not taking advantage of other people that they are very easily taken advantage of in some ways. Or at least hesitant to the point of being fucking infuriating. So first up for the kind of how do you know in general, right? We've got the student. Light attributes are humility and devotion to knowledge and openness to lifelong learning. And then we've got Mercury retrograde, which is reinvention, but I would also say focusing again on blocked energies in order to make them unblocked, which is a really amazing quality. It's just that it requires that focus, that period of nothing fucking works, that is absolutely, well, it has the potential to drive a partner up the wall, yeah? I'm not taking the shadow aspect for this particular one, although I've looked at the shadows of all of the others so far. But let's just say for student that either you probably met when one or both of you are students, or this person is a lifelong learner and has encouraged you to be in the same way. I get the feeling that they're kind of never done in their personal pursuits, that nothing's ever really good enough in terms of how much they know about the world. They might be someone who picks up languages at the drop of a hat in a way that you find intimidating or annoying. They may be somebody who is always there with the trivia questions, who aces it at the pub quiz, etc. And they may come out with shit occasionally that completely baffles you, and you look at them without recognition and they sort of just laugh it off. But I do get the sense that this is a person who is always in pursuit of the next thing, and is not fully aware that that's not always how the rest of the world works, right? With the Mercury retrograde, it's a focusing on communication, and particularly on the communication of others. So they might, like I say, be into languages, or even into sort of esoterica and communications across history regarding that sort of thing. But it's also, they may have reinvented themselves so many times that they are now unrecognisable to people who knew them 15, 20 years ago, or even just a few months ago. It depends on how fast-paced that particular energy is and how much speedy stuff is in your person's astrological chart. But the other thing about Mercury retrograde, and I want to read from the little accompanying book for this wonderful deck, just for one particular quote that I remembered and I had to go look it up again. It says, "Mishaps are like knives that either serve us or cut us as we grasp them by the blade or by the handle." My sense is that your person, your spouse, your individual that you'll end up with is just as likely to grab a falling knife by the blade and then kind of go, "Oh shit, yeah, I wasn't meant to do that, duh." And this may be something that as you're watching causes you a lot of worry or frustration, in a loving way, because as I said in the intro, like, all of these qualities are very adorable once you're in love with the person, but there are also things which may be counterintuitive from your particular angle, right? Okay, so let's get into your 6 major things. The first one here, we've got God with the 8 of Cups and Strength in reversed. I get the feeling that this God figure is not actually a reflection of your partner, but maybe even something that they say to you as a joke in response to you pointing out this particular quality, which is that when a situation is not fitting them emotionally or physically, they find it very hard to leave. They find it difficult to muster the strength to get out of situations that are not for them. And this may leave you, as I said, frustrated, exasperated, etc. It's almost as if with this idea of like holding the falling knife by the blade, they then sort of look at their hand and start screaming, but don't drop the knife or seek first aid. They're just kind of there going, "Ah," while you look on and have to intervene, you know. And the sort of joke between you about this that I sense either is happening or might happen is that you will say, "Well, you know, you could have left such and such, or you could have picked another job, or you could maybe have stopped doing that unhealthy thing that you knew was unhealthy for 20 or so years." And they go, "Look, man, I'm not God." Or they say something about leaving it to the will of God, or, you know, higher forces orchestrating the whole thing. And they say it with a side smirk and a slight wink, like they know that that's not the case, but they also know that it winds you up for them to sort of put accountability elsewhere when they've done this thing again. So I do get the sense of it becoming quite an endearing joke between you. Second characteristic, we've got rescuer, and then we've got the Ace of Coins and the 2 of Wands in reverse. I feel this is an indecision surrounding their money, their financial assets, just how they manage themselves materially. And it's not that they're indecisive as in they don't know what to spend shit on. It's that they want to help everybody out, and they may have many figures in their life who see them as a rescuer, who see them as an empathic being, and sort of say, "Hey man, can you lend us a tenner?" or £1,000, and they go, yeah, sure, what's it to me, you know, always here for you, bro. And then 10 years later, you're saying, you know, you could kind of do with that money, and they agree, but they just kind of reassure you that this person will pay it back. It's like, oh, I trust them, you know, £2,000, 10 grand, 20 grand down. It's all right, they're good for it. And I get the sense that you are there again, sort of doing the Arthur thing of clenching and unclenching the fist, like the meme. Like, okay, I love that you have this much faith in the world and in other people. Sadly, that means we'll go without holiday again this year. It may not be on that vast a scale, but I do get the sense that if somebody asks them for money, they will go, oh yeah, sure, cool. Maybe it's that they've been in a position where they were rescued, where they were helped out financially. Maybe even by you, because they couldn't get out of a particular situation. But as a result, they just see financial flow and the flow of love as kind of one and the same thing, and they don't really have very good financial boundaries. So this isn't someone who's like frivolously spending their own cash on, you know, stuff that doesn't matter or whatever. This is more somebody who will absolutely lend anybody a tenner, no matter how many teeth they have left, how many times they've been in prison, or whether or not there is precedent that they're never going to get that back, right? Okay, going to the next one. This is a bit of a complex one, because on the face of it, prostitute and addict in the negatives are not great archetypes to pull. I mean, obviously. And then we've got an Ace of Wands and a King of Wands, both in reverse. This could be to do with creative energy, but actually the interpretation that I'm reading in a romantic relationship is that this person may not be the most sexually forthcoming, at least at first, in your relationship. Ace of Wands upright is a unanimously understood symbol for dick, right? Whether or not your person has such an appendage, this is also kind of, will they give it up, won't they? And King of Wands is sometimes a figure that talks about domination or kink or just interacting in that very fiery way. So for them to have both of those in reverse is like, no, I'm not sure, I don't know. And with prostitute and addict, I think this is because of stuff that they've associated with sex in the past. Maybe they associate certain types of sex with people from their past who were sex addicted, or from unhealthy patterns. Prostitute can sometimes be less about literal sex and more about compromising the self for others. So it could be that they've had a long period of time single, or that they just kind of, they see giving it up sexually as a giving up of other things. There's also stuff in here about material consideration and addictive patterns where money, materiality, status are concerned. And because that comes up later on in your reading, there's also this thing of like, if they've got their eye on their money or their work or their status in like a social media kind of sense, in the sense of flexing and stuff like that, it may be that they don't necessarily want to give it up because they're on the phone or because they're working or because their focus is on that kind of stuff. And it's really not from any lack of love to do with you. And I think that's why it's a slightly more serious topic and it's coming up here. If they're not the most sexually forthcoming, I do not think it's to do with you. I don't even think it's reflective of personal desire. Even for some of you, there may be erectile problems at some stage, maybe when you're a lot older, but whatever. And I think these are closely tied to ideas about the prostitute and addict archetypes, and not actually tied to you or to bodily responses per se. But yeah, just know that if they're not giving it up straight away, or if you're in the mood and they're kind of preoccupied in a way with something else, it's something that you will get niggled by in the relationship long term. But that's all it is. It's a niggle, and it's not reflective of their dedication to you, because there's a very devotional sense with this energy. They do absolutely worship the ground you walk on, whether or not you always recognize it in your frustrations with them. And it's almost like a childlike relationship sometimes, where you have to, as I say, pick the knife blade out of their hand and tell them that maybe that wasn't the best idea. But because of your ability to do that and your sort of never-ending patience with them and nurturing towards them, and I imagine vice versa, they're aware that it's a very strong connection, and there is a sexual pull. It's not like there's a lack of passion, it's just that there is a kind of weird delay in that passion sometimes. And for some of you, it may just be that your sex drive is higher than theirs, or that, you know, some of the times that you ask or you come onto them or whatever are not what they deem to be appropriate times because they've had a different sexual background to you. So just be aware of that, but it's nothing to worry about. I'm going to just shift in my chair, so apologies for any noises. Okay, so on this side we've got the femme fatale and then the Knight of Wands in reverse with the Queen of Coins in reverse. Attachment to money and power is coming up again. I don't think that it's inappropriate use of sensuality with this person. They don't come across to me as someone who flaunts their sexuality for dodgy reasons, even though prostitutes come up and that can be a thing. Just the general energy, I don't think it's that, right? But I think they might be a bit attached to status, and I think some of that may be friendship related, social media related, again to do with reputation, which is why they lend out money so easily, because who would they be if they didn't, kind of thing. And there's a sense sometimes that they're not very speedy with things, and they're not always very quick with financial decisions or kind of getting their own when it comes to coin and career. It may be that they've had a lot of false starts in their career, that they've kind of tried to do something again and again, or tried to go down many different paths, again with the reinventions, and that they didn't quite settle on something earlier in their life and came late to it and came slowly to it. And that's because of this attachment to how much money or power this could give them. There's always the sense with this person, and it doesn't apply to relationships, but with everything else, there's an idea that there is always something beyond that which they've already achieved. And that, I think, can leave them in a state of paralysis, which is frustrating for you to watch, because you know where their assets lie. This isn't a reading about what they're good at, because I feel like that will be very instantly clear to you, and you'll kind of go on a journey of being more and more appreciative of that, and you'll come to love all of these things about them. But it's almost like, because they don't see which of their own assets are the strongest, they just want the next thing that's going to seem like the strongest thing, and that means that they're a slowpoke, essentially. They're plodding through life. They've not got speedy Knight of Wands creative energy. They've not got Queen of Coins balance with their finances and stuff. There's even a sense that when you meet them, whether or not they're a student, they might not be in the financially best situation. But there is indication in this reading to bear with them, because they can get in that upright Queen of Coins energy, and they can get into, rather than attachment to power, opening your heart and opening the heart of others, despite rejections, despite going off track with things. And for those of you who are seeking a feminine partner, they can get into that erotic feminine energy by doing well financially. Like, the power will just kind of click in every aspect of life in a really interesting way. But I think at first, when you meet up, they might not be doing so hot, or they, you know, if they are a student, they might be switching majors all the time, or changing courses, or going from one site to another, because something about it can always be better. And I feel like for this figure, they haven't necessarily got, maybe it's that they didn't have the greatest parental care, or maybe it's just that, like, they didn't always have someone telling them, like, you know, if you do this one and stick with it and it turns out to be wrong, it's not the end of the world. So they kind of flit from thing to thing a lot, and they're in that self-insecure energy, at least until the point where they meet you. And I actually think you will be a strong catalyst in them feeling better about themselves. And there's almost an energy coming into the reading of, like, that feeling of sureness cementing with them, and them thanking you either in advance or, you know, at the time you're viewing this together potentially, for, like, being that rock to them that made them go, you know what, I'm just going to take something, I'm just going to stick with it and build on it, and I'm going to build things up slowly, because I do believe in my talents now that I see how you see me, which is fucking beautiful, is it not? Okay, so moving down here, we've got the Eight of Swords, the King of Coins in reverse, and then the Shadow Prince, which is using power for self-aggrandizement. I don't think this is them, but I think that they could have a status obsession in terms of reputation for the reasons already discussed to do with attachment issues and so forth. I think that what will piss you off in this sense is that they are trapped by their perceived financial insufficiency, and they do have this potential for great power and great romance, but it's almost like you have to kind of shake it out of them, like, no, you are worth this stuff. Because if left to their own devices, they'd be in a kind of prison of their own mind and think that they will never achieve mastery in any particular field. It's interesting how much career stuff is coming up. I do wonder whether either you're in the same kinds of fields or you're so opposite that it kind of helps each other out because you've had completely different backgrounds, and one of you can say, this is the thing you were missing, and I see it clearly because it's where my speciality is, and vice versa. I know with myself, I've had like an opposite nodal connection, which does that. It kind of challenges but also inspires both people involved in it, because you're the exact opposite comfort zone of the other person. So what you want out of this lifetime is exactly what they're used to. And where you're most comfortable is exactly what they're trying to get away from, right? So there is that energy. I don't know whether, like, I think nodal differences require a certain age gap astrologically, but it's worth looking into if you do feel that opposition with your partner. And then the last one we've got is Liberator with the Hanged Man in reverse and 7 of Coins in reverse. Ignoring legitimate constraints is the thing that jumps out here. I think with the general slowpoke energy, and not to stereotype, but your person may have strong Taurus. Certainly not rehabilitated Taurus. But there is this sense of like, they will just take some time out to reflect, to reboot, to sleep even, to have fun and go to gigs, because I'm hearing the music and it's very suddenly transitioned into something completely different. They may be a maximum hormone fan, you never know. But while they're taking that sort of time out, your frustration is, yeah, but there's all these legitimate things that need to be taken care of, and you would be liberated by actually facing up to them. And again, it's almost like there's an in-joke between you of like, I'm reflecting right now, I'm processing right now. You know, they may be a person on a spiritual path and they're sort of saying to you, and I see myself in this, they're sort of going like, I need to dwell on what's just happened, I need to process it, man. And you're going, yes, but the building is on fire now, you know, or the kids need feeding now, or that's fine, but you have these bills to pay, or that's fine, but I haven't had attention from you in weeks, you know, like, take all the time you need, but maybe not right now. And they have no sense of the appropriate time in which to do all this. But again, it's like an adorable niggle. It's not like they're going to sleep through something really important, or they're going to, what's the word? It's not like they're going to be neglectful of something with genuine importance and priority to you, because they need to take a time out. It's just that at home and sort of in your company, because that's the company of trust, they may take a little bit more sleepy time, or time to process, or time to do spiritual activities than you would have them do. And that may impinge on your time together, or indeed on their general responsibilities. But the thing that's wanting to come in at the end here, I'm really hearing this music, I'm sorry if it's very loud for you, but this may be another clue, I don't know. Look up the song, I'm going to murder the pronunciation, but Yoshu Fukushu, it might ring some bells, I don't know. Anyway, they're coming in with this hedonist card, which was the extra one pulled for you that I kind of didn't want to include. And again, they changed tactic, they changed genre as a band. You see what I mean? It's like switch, 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 switch. It could be that you don't know who you're fucking dealing with at any moment with this person. And that is both something that frustrates you and something that excites you, maybe even sexually, I don't know. But yeah, they're saying, inspires creative energy to embrace the good things in life and celebrate the beauty in yourself. I do feel like this person wants to say, yeah, I annoy the fuck out of you, I drive you up the wall, but also I helped you to see the beauty within you, and I don't know that you would have without me, and vice versa. And they're saying thank you for that, as I said, but they're also saying to you, you know, if you haven't met them, or if you're not with them right now, or whatever, this is a communication that you are so beautiful and they fucking adore everything about you, and you inspire them, and vice versa. And I think actually, you know, whenever it is that you get together as a couple or as more than a couple, who knows, it's up to your lifestyle, but they will bring out the positive hedonist in you and vice versa. And again, with this Taurian energy, there may be a tendency of you guys to luxuriate in sensuality, to enjoy food together, to have indulgent experiences, to travel a lot, to wear fine fabrics, to sleep for long hours and fuck the rest of the day. You know what I mean? Like, there's this very like chilled, laid back energy. And I think that that's possible for you as a couple, because that person brings some of that restfulness in, where you're used to more of a work paradigm or a swifter movement. So I think, you know, if you are somebody that resonates with being opposites attract, that's how it works. And if you're more similar as a couple, then I think perhaps it's just that you both wanted this kind of a relationship. You wanted a sanctuary from the rest of the world where you can just let it all hang out and indulge in the beauty that life offers you both. So yeah, I really like this one. I may say that about each pile, but this is particularly lovely. And I hope that it was useful to you. If it was, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Pass this reading on to whoever you think might benefit from it, or pass it to your partner if you saw them in it and think it'd make them laugh. And yeah, just take care, pile one. See you around the bend. Hello to my splendid and gorgeous pile twos who picked the very kinky Manara tarot. Let's have a shuffle, shall we? Alright, pile two, you will notice that there are little modesty sections here. That's so that I don't get banned from YouTube. Although there will be some references to that aspect of your relationship. And if you want a full-on sex reading from me, please comment that down below. I'd love to do it, but nobody's asked for it yet. So, or at least only one person that I know of at the time of recording. Okay, so your person... Oh yeah, the first sort of preliminary tarot thing to say is that in the meditation space between things, I had the urge to eat that was almost uncontrollable. So there is a feeling that either your partner doesn't eat enough, or that they, like myself, have been called things like snackzilla by previous partners, because it seems that the eating never really stops. Or that they can be known to overindulge, get 10 extra portions if left unaccountable, etc. Both of these are quite adorable qualities, really, you know. And it seems like the nurturing vibe in this relationship coming from you will absolutely check in with them in terms of either, you know, if you're feeling lightheaded, you should probably eat, boo, or you might want to slow down with that stuff. Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's something up front to say. There's also a very literal interpretation, which is why I laughed in the shuffle, with this beggar and the body, that sometimes one or the other of you may beg the other for sex. Like, I'm talking like on knees, pleading, just touch it, please. There's like a mild desperation with this that I think you'll find funny within the context of the relationship. It's not actually begging. It's not a lack of love between you or a lack of reciprocity. It's just that either one of you gets so uncontrollably horny at times, hence the deck, that you're kind of saying to the other, please, for the love of God, it doesn't have to be a full sesh, or it doesn't have to be more than the tip, or whatever the fuck, but it's just like, ooh. I'm back, pal, too. Sorry about that. A delivery came for me, and actually it was fairly appropriate, right? Because we were talking about this potential of begging for sex. And something I may feel is a factor is like, I don't give a shit if we're interrupted. I want it now. Not in a nasty way, not in a non-consenting way, but just in the sense of like, I'm so desperate for this. I don't care if someone walks in, because I went through the experience of doing quite a sexual reading and having someone walk in. So there's also the thing of, it was to deliver a chain for some jewellery that I have, and there may be a sense that there's this like big devil energy coming in, or your shit is off the chain, and that's what they're trying to say with this. Like, they really want you to know that you're good. That's also echoed by the song choice that's on right now, which I associate with, shall we say, some good energy in that respect, right? So even before we get into the meanings of these, let's just say that one of the things which may occasionally irritate you about your partner is that they will do it anywhere and in whatever way, but it will kind of come on very quickly. And you'll just have to be like, well, how can we manage this? Or maybe you'll say no, I don't know. But I get for a lot of you that the attraction is so mutual that you'll kind of go, okay, let's see how this is doable. Can we transfer ourselves to a place that we won't get arrested? Can we do this in, half the time? What can we get out of this? Anyway, right, we're going to move on from the sexual stuff for just a moment. It will come up again, don't you worry. So with the beggar in the light attribute, we've got confronting empowerment at the level of physical survival, awakening the spiritual authority of humility, compassion and self-esteem. And we've got it with the first house, or the body. Overcoming first house issues really relates to the light attribute of this. And this pillar in the middle is kind of your idea of who your person is before I get into any of the negatives. There's basically a sense that they've gone without, and that they might have encountered things like literal physical starvation or the inability to support themselves at one point or another. There's also indication from this orphan child archetype over here that there may have been first house or root chakra kind of issues in childhood, where they were abandoned or left to fend for themselves, or there's some kind of like bodily or financial worry, and some trauma around that which carries through to the future. Now, the reason I say this, and it's not at all a negative, is that that's made your person incredibly strong, incredibly independent, perhaps to a fault, as we'll see over here. And it means essentially that they've cultivated an unusual level of reliability within themselves, that they are one of the wisest and most steady people that you know, by very nature of having suffered some of these things. And also with first house, there can be stuff to do with heart stuff, circulation stuff, stuff to do with the head, all of which could be like medical issues, disabilities. I mean, all of this applies to me at the moment, so it's very odd that it's coming up. But yeah, I get the feeling that either they had a terrible time or they were dealing with disability or long-term issue that made them sacrifice things that other people haven't had to sacrifice, perhaps put them in a kind of outsider space when compared to other figures. And that level of living in the shadows, or living, from paycheck to paycheck, or perhaps even being homeless in some cases, or having to fend for themselves, has made them a person that you really admire. And that's kind of how you're going to recognize them. It may be that you meet them and you don't immediately pick up on this stuff, but I think once they tell you their story, it's something that's going to be very impressive to you in particular, and that you might have had a very different background, but you will kind of see within them the potential for your own healing and development and the acceleration of your own spiritual gifts because of what it is that they've had to endure, particularly in childhood or in their teens. So moving on from that, what's going to fucking piss you off about them? Well, the first thing is they can't keep their mouths shut. And I think that tendency to gossip actually comes from a certain amount of pride with where they've got themselves to, from the position of this beggar archetype that we saw in the beginning. I get the feeling that they've come into a place where they feel physically stable, either in the body or in their sort of finances and materiality. I mean, you can see in this card, she sat at a very nice looking cafe, reading some erotica. It'd be nice if I could say the word. And enjoying a glass of wine. You may fumble for words, or your person may do. I don't know what that is, but yeah, there's this very kind of luxurious feeling about the way that they're living their life now. That may not be outwardly evident to everybody else, but it's something that when it's in stark comparison to how they used to be, is something that they're very proud of achieving. And with this Knight of Water, it's somebody who's very emotionally expressive, very romantic, very comfortable. But together with this and this, it's kind of somebody whose station in life makes them comfortable enough that they don't give a shit about the repercussions of talking about other people. There may even, with this face here, be like a bit of a snooty attitude of like, well, if they don't want people talking about it, they shouldn't do X, Y, Z. At which point you may throw your hands up in the air or roll your eyes and go, that's not the point, you can't gossip about people, or if you tell people secrets, such and such will happen and it's not great, right? But I don't think it's that they're not aware of this. I think it's just that they are in a position where they're happy, so they can talk about what they want. And sometimes that might get them into a bit of hot water, right? Or it might get others into hot water in a way that they're not fully cognizant of. So the next one. In a very literal sense, I think your person spends far too long in the shower. I think they have far too many products. I think that with this Fool card here, they maybe try a new thing every time they get in there. Or every time they enter the bathroom. And therefore you're left in a position where you're outside going, hun, the water's gone. Like, that's it. That's all we had. And again, it may be that they used to live somewhere where the shower facilities weren't great or were non-existent, and they just want to indulge for a while. They want to luxuriate in the feeling of hot water or indeed cold water. But I do get the sense that in a very practical perspective, you're just like, what the fuck? Other people live in this house or, wherever. And this says compulsive need to keep moving on. So if that doesn't fully resonate, this could be just like emotionally. Again, this like, must use this thing, must do this thing. There may be somebody who's very easily sold to in terms of miracle products that will absolutely rejuvenate their hair, skin, life, business, They're the sorts of people who would possibly invest in pyramid schemes or be taken in by products with chemical names that nobody can pronounce that didn't exist 3 months ago, It's this kind of susceptibility to the new and the exciting, but it's in a bit more of a material or emotional sense. So it may be that advertising works on them particularly well because they do have this area of emotional vulnerability, of having grown a great deal from where they were. But we'll come to it later. They still feel a little bit of lack in some departments. And if somebody says to them, I can fill that lack for you with this particular fried chicken, or, you'll feel better about your entire life if this is the car that you purchase, then, from a very non-materialistic standpoint, they will go, oh, absolutely, that's the thing I need to get. And again, you may be watching from the sidelines saying, but honey, it's a car. How is it going to help your feelings about your father? Or, but honey, it's some fried chicken. It's not going to stop you feeling mad at your friend, right? I get the sense that you're not really made this way. You're very cynical about things like advertising. You're also not someone who uses up all the hot water or has 1,001 products for every part of your body. But this person, those things may apply and it may rub you up the wrong way. Again, it's not like a complete downfall characteristic. None of these are. It's just something that may niggle you from time to time. And you may be someone who finds yourself banging on the bathroom door, yelling at them, when that isn't necessarily a characteristic behaviour for you. Okay, moving on, we've got mentor. The bit I'm concentrating on here is imparting false instruction, but it's also inability to allow the student to move on to the role of master. And we've got it with the Ace of Pentacles and the Sun. I think your person, because they have come a long way, and because they have figured out a lot of the answers for themselves in a very rejected or abandoned or difficult situation, can have a tendency to see ungratefulness in others where it doesn't exist. So they may be the sort of person who gives someone a present for, say, Christmas or something, and then when that person isn't over the moon doing victory laps around the living room crying, they're a bit put out and like, well, I didn't think that reaction was proportionate. Or they may tell somebody else something, you know, give them a life lesson or a bit of friendly advice, or, you know, give them a bit of anecdotal stuff about themselves that they don't confide in everybody with, or something along those lines. And if the person's response isn't what they consider to be proportionate, they get a bit pissy, if I'm honest. And you may have to be the person to come in and sort of say, it's all right, dear, they don't mean anything by it, they did say thank you, it just wasn't in your love language, right? Or it just wasn't to the magnitude which you feel you should be thanked. I hasten to add, because this will come up again later, this person is not a narcissist or anything like that. It's just that they are so grateful for the people who have helped them out over the years, or the things that have given them a foothold in their own circumstances, that when they see less than that gratefulness in others, they immediately label them ungrateful, and then they get into a bit of a mini tantrum about it. So I can see it really pissing you off, especially when it relates to your family or friends. Like if something nice has happened for both of you, and, you know, like I mentioned, family gatherings, Christmases, etc., and then they start to get uppity about someone's disproportionate gratefulness, right? It can ruin the evening for you and make you a little bit like, all right, but can we just have a nice time? I'm just going to shuffle over this side. Please do excuse me. Okay, so getting over to this end of things. Before we say anything else, I'm just going to give you a rundown of what your person is sexually interested in, because you chose the kink deck and I think you want to know. There's a lot of voyeuristic stuff here, there's a lot of watching, there's also a lot of worship, which you may have picked up on with the ungrateful stuff in terms of your more intimate partnership, but this is something that this person wants. They want to be worshipped, or they want to worship you, but I feel in most cases it's that they want to be worshipped. There's also a lot of ass stuff, there's a lot of stuff with legs, and if you're into women, there's a lot of kind of chest stuff that I've had to block out, so that may be something that draws you to them, or indeed vice versa, you do you. But certainly like public sex, voyeurism, sex with immediacy, as discussed before with this couple on the bench, I mean, it's going to come up in this row anyway, but stretching is a thing. And I don't mean flexibility, you know what I'm on about. I can't say more than that on a public channel where kids are advised not to watch, but maybe watching, but you see what I mean, right? We've already had butt stuff, you get it. Okay, so moving swiftly on. Shadow, monk or nun, negative judgment of the physical world, excess piety. I don't think that this person is a pious individual. I don't think that they would be truly compatible with the person who picked the sex deck if they were frigid or nun-like or whatever. I think what it is that their judgment of what other people do plays into a lack of sexual inhibitions. Sorry, again, can't speak. And you know, how I was saying about the beggar energy before, and then the public energy, and then this very obvious stretching here. But I noticed there's like a crowd in the background of this. they may want group stuff, or they may just want to be observed a lot, but it's going to be the sort of thing where like they're pushing it so far towards that threshold that you're, I don't want to say uncomfortable because that implies a lack of consent, but you know, in relation to the public stuff, it may be like a little bit too public for comfort, or with them wanting people to watch, that may not be something that you're up for, because you're potentially not into any kind of third-party energies or camming or anything else that sort of falls under that very large umbrella, right? But I do get the sense that as an extension of this spiritual energy where they've kind of made it to the top and now they're bragging about it or whatever, not bragging, but you know, they're pleased with themselves for making it from the bottom up. It sort of carries over into sexuality where they're so pleased to be with you and to flaunt the life that they've now built for themselves, that if other people don't like the fact that they are quite public about their sex life, or that they want to be watched, or that you guys are doing it in public, they take an attitude of, well, that's their fucking problem. They must just be a monk or a nun, or, you know, have a weird attitude to the body or whatever. And I don't think it's that. I think that you are much more in the knowledge of like, there's a line to be walked between throwing it in people's faces in a way that is non-consensual versus being quite PDA, but, you know, balanced with that, shall we say, or running the risk of being seen but not actually being seen in a way that is breaking the law, etc., etc. And again, with this, the stuff referred to in this card, it may be that they're suggesting things in the beginning of the relationship that you're not 100% down for, or that you've not tried, or that you're a bit hesitant about. And that they're sort of, not in shaming energy, but a bit like surprised by your hesitancy. Or vice versa, you can flip this for this particular card, but I think that the other party in either case, it's not that they're trying to push anybody into anything, it's just that there is a level of comfort there which sort of almost frames everybody else as being uncomfortable with sex as a whole, right? So I hope that makes any kind of sense, but yeah, it's definitely like, this row is about like, I want to be sexual, I've made it this far, fuck everyone who disagrees with me being sexual kind of at them or in their vicinity or whatever, right? Okay, moving on to this row, again with the voyeurist energy. We've got feelings of abandonment that stifle maturation or seeking appropriate surrogate families. Oh wow, that was kind of weird that came on with Granddaddy, right? Fucking great song though. Oh God, I love it. Yeah, the seeking inappropriate surrogate families hit me there at the same time as Granddaddy. So it may even be that they seek parental, grandparental or authority figures that are sort of not connected in a familial way to them. And they are literally looking for a granddaddy or a daddy or a mommy or whatever. But I get that from the combination of the song and the reading. But these in combination, we've got the Hermit reversed, Justice, and then this. And with this watching energy and this isolation, I feel like your person frames themselves as being outside of all family. And that's whether or not you guys choose to have a family yourselves, you know, be that babies or fur babies, or just, you know, a commune of like-minded people, whatever floats your boat. This is your reading. But I think that even despite that, and even despite the security that is evident within this relationship, they may sometimes position themselves on the outside of everything going on, to the point where it gets a bit irritating for you, where you feel like they're playing the orphan card maybe a little bit more often than you would have them play it, or they're falling back into what happened to them, into their victim story, into how they went from beggar to victor, in a fashion that you kind of just want to let lie, you want to let it go, you want to manifest something new. I think actually it could make them incredibly sad to see other, as it says, surrogate families, to see other communities, to watch people in groups and feel like an outsider whether or not they are one. And I think that there's an energy with this that your person could be very, very well loved and still feel ostracized because of something that's unhealed within them. And that may be true, you know, right into the sort of intermediate to advanced stages of your relationship in terms of chronology. I think it will be fairly evident early on. As soon as you learn their story, things will start to click in and make sense for you as to why they seemed distant from certain activities. But then also I think that there's this sense of injustice coming from them that I guess is coming up in the reading because you can't really fix it, right? I think your instinct as somebody who loves them and vice versa is to sweep in and almost act like a surrogate parent, or give them the family they never had, or the friendship group they never had, or the love and security that they were always seeking. But there's a necessary message here of no matter how hard you try, you can't make up for their early or prior experiences. And with the best will in the world, you are their safe place, but you can't do all of the work for them, right? They have to engage with this on a level that is intentionally seeking out self-healing, maybe even therapy. Again, it's only a niggle. It's not going to be a deal breaker because this is a spouse relationship or a long-term thing. And again, we've got the Irma Thomas Black Mirror song. Anyone who knows what love is will understand, right? You will be patient with this, just as they will understand that you can't be everything to them, that they can't get every need for connection in the wider sense from one connection with you. And it may be with the hypersexuality of this reading for just some of you, that they've led a life where they were quite hypersexual, quite promiscuous in the past, because they were seeking that connection that was missing when they were in dire straits, right? And it's almost like there's worries coming in the early stages of your relationship of like, can one person fill all of these gaps for me? And the answer, of course, is no, but that's not because this relationship isn't the right one. It's because nobody can be everything to one person. And I think that part of their journey with you is to recognise that and to say that, you know, to acknowledge that for them, it has always been you, and you have always ticked all their boxes and fulfilled them as much as another human being possibly can. But their reservations or insecurities about sexually committing to one relationship, either as a soul thing, a monogamous thing, or just as a primary, part of that is founded in this understanding that other people will fill the gaps for you, and that's not the case. So I guess the communication with that, you know, taking a bit of a serious turn is, don't put it all on yourself that this person needs this family feeling everywhere they go, and don't get, if you can, don't get too irritated by it. Try to be the person who loves them and will understand, in the words of Irma Thomas, right? Maybe even listen to the song separate to this reading. But yeah, like if you catch them watching these things going on, just give them love, maybe even physical affection. Hold the hand, maybe remove them from the situation that's distressing them, and just be to them whatever it is that you can be, because that is more than enough by itself. And I don't ever want you to feel that it isn't. It's just that there's some stuff for them that is unresolved, right? The journey of this lifetime for them is quite a long one, with a lot of processing of what happened to them, even though they have all this pride about where they got despite that, right? You can't be the granddaddy, but you can be someone who loves them and will understand. Moving on to Catch a Thief by Lovage. Excellent transition there, thank you, Patton. And also moving on to a far more sexual energy again down here. This Destroyer with these two, it's the Ten of Swords and the Empress, but I don't actually feel it's representative of those numbers, etc. I think it's the imagery in the cards we're looking at. This is a person who wants you to bow down to them. Any gender, any relationship, doesn't have to be comp-het just because the cards are. they want to be lusted after, they want to be put on a pedestal, carried around on a palanquin, fed grapes, you know, taken to lofty heights. They might be the sort of person who's into cityscape sort of stuff, you know, like restaurants up shards, helicopter rides, living finer things in life. Because of all the lack that they had earlier on, they now want to have a very sort of catered for, luxuriated relationship. This could even be like a sugar daddy sort of dynamic, or sugar mommy for some of you, where they feel like they want you to look after them a little bit because they've been so good in looking after themselves up until this point that they want someone to sort of make things a little easier for them. But if that doesn't resonate, this is certainly a person that wants to be sexually worshipped, that wants to be held aloft. And I feel like although there's an immediacy and they want to fuck in public and stuff, there's also a lot of energy of like taking things super slow and covering every inch of them in every conceivable way, whilst also, you know, showering them with compliments as you go. And the reason this is in the negative, because enjoyable experience, right, is that it's destroyer. Because I get the feeling that in the same way they'll get a bit pissy if other people aren't grateful enough for their company, attention or gifts, I think they'll fucking destroy a person who doesn't worship them adequately in bed. I think that this can be in a sort of light-hearted version of an emotional sense, where they just get really stroppy. Or if it's not like a brattish dynamic, I think this could be, if you don't pay them adequate time and attention, they will just flip the script, flip you and fucking destroy you physically, right? They will get what it is that they were after if they do not feel that you're luxuriating in the glory that is their body, right? And I'm sorry if you know me and you're hearing all this sex stuff come out of my mouth and you're grossed, but that is what I'm getting for this. It's like, worship me or I'll fucking destroy you. And I do get, again, because you picked this deck, you might be really into that. But sometimes I think it'll piss you off because it's almost like, oh, here we go, Veruca Salt's come to the fucking bedroom again. You know, I won. And sometimes they may not be the first person to think about what it is that you want. But again, that's not from lack of sincerity or love or desire. It's just that it's very important to them that they get their needs met, even at a foundational level, right? So, I hope that clarified some stuff for you. If you do want a sex reading, let me know. If you liked this, please click like, please share with your friends, please subscribe and ding the dong. Thank you kindly. It helps me out immensely, especially where the algorithm is concerned. And just, you know, have fun with this one. This is a very highly sexed pile with some of the songs I've included in the playlist that are highly sexed. She says as motherfucker 64 is on. And yeah, I just say have fun with it. There's a lot of love between you and yeah, you do you. Just try not to involve people who don't want to be involved, yeah? Take care, pal, too. Delectable and delicious pile 3. I wanted to say dead but delicious pile 3, so maybe you've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, or you are one of them gothics, in which case, hail. Let's begin your shuffle. Pile 3. The good news is that most of your person's stuff that will really piss you off is in the early stages of courtship. So if you're watching this as a couple, or having united in whatever form is appropriate to you, then don't worry about it, because at least half of this reading is telling me how you got together and how fucking frustrating a process that was for you. If, however, you have not met your person yet, this could be a useful heads up, no? Okay, so firstly we've got athlete, which wanted to come up in the shadow, which is interesting. But we're taking the positive because this pillar here is just about your person in general until we get into the more negative stuff. I'll explain more in a sec, but in the light, this is dedication to transcending physical limits, including handicaps, and development of personal willpower and strength of spirit. And then we've got earth element stability. There is a good chance that your person has either been born differently or disabled, or that they have excelled in an athletic field to the point where they've gone beyond limits that people consider to be the kind of normal parameters of the body. It could be either or, because there's a large audience watching this. For some, I'm getting that they're like a climber or a skater, or something involving particular levels of daring with the body, that other people find to be, you know, like extreme sports type territory. Maybe not climber then, but, you know, bouldering and doing mad shit up hills, right? I don't know, I'm not sporty, not remotely sporty. I'm in the athlete handicap category, right? But there's something to do with the body here. And I actually get just as much of a like sexual vibe for this pile as I did for pile 2, who picked the kink deck. So it may be that this person's focus on the body, whether that's in a medical sense or in the sense of just outdoing competitors for, you know, in a sport kind of a way, it's put them particularly in tune with their own body, their own differences, their own nuances of physique, in a way that can come across as hypersexuality, and certainly in a way that leads to a very passionate connection between you two. This is something the earth element can talk about. Yes, it's pentacles. Yes, it's establishing yourself as a very abundant person. But also it can be to do with transcending the body's limits. And I'm thinking of, what's it called? The latest Cronenberg movie that's come out, The Surgery is the New Sex one. Can't for the life of me think of the title, but I'll put it down below. Your person may be into body horror because they're interested in this almost objective exploration of the body, its limits, its nuances, and its metamorphoses, right? But if that's not resonating, it could be that this person has just transcended something very physical, or in some cases, maybe even that they're literally trans, right? Getting into why it came up in the shadow, misuse of athletic ability for selfish ends, or false entitlement and sense of invulnerability. I don't think this is as dominant because I never intended to take these in reverse, but it bears sort of speaking about because it did flip itself before we got into stuff. I feel like almost your person is in such a good place with their body now, or at least in such a self-aware place where the body and where sexuality are concerned, that it's almost like they take it for granted and they could push it in terms of their own limits, in terms of the limits of the competition, if that's applicable, or even in terms of like how they relate to sex versus how other people do. And we're seeing some of that come across in the Don Juan over here. For a small number of you, again, echoes of pile 2, but also echoes of pile 1 in a different way we'll get to. They may have been a bit of a whore in the past, and I say that as someone who freely advocates for that lifestyle, but you know, it may be that until they came into whatever arrangement or partnership it is with you, that part of their way of getting over the limitations of the body that they found was to explore other people's bodies, right? And to sort of enter into that dialogue in the way that we understand to be very sexual. So in the same way that Cronenberg body horrors are often very sexy movies, as well as very gory and disturbing ones, this person's understanding of their own gore, if you like, has sort of pushed them into a sexual arena as well, because they're fascinated by bodies, right? Other people's, their own, particularly yours, because you're ending up with them, right? And that implies that the fascination with your body in particular is an endless one. It's renewable. It's not like other connections they may have had that have been very swift and very almost investigative, in that cold, calculating Cronenberg kind of a way. I think the sex with you has more meaning to it and more stability to it. And that's part of why they realised that you were the one for them. And in terms of you recognising them in the vice versa, like I say, they're either going to be a literal athlete or somebody who's had to overcome bodily stuff in very interesting ways that demand objectivity and almost emotional restraint in order to fully understand the body as a mechanistic idea. Okay? I know that's really heavy territory for just getting in, but let's get to some of the fun stuff, right? So why do I think this is all early relationship? First up, we've got the mediator shadow, which is negotiating with an ulterior motive or hidden agenda, either personally or professionally. Then we've got the hanged man, indicating a period of waiting or indeed a period of teasing. And then the fool, which is like very swift movement in one particular direction. You may already be following me on this, right? There's a possibility you met them through a friend, just because of the mediator card, but it's not essential. But certainly there's this thing of like, in the beginning of your relationship, it was like holding pattern, holding pattern, holding pattern. Now, go, go, go. And I do get the sense from other bits as well, that you perhaps thought for a very long time that they weren't interested, or indeed had very long periods of being ghosted by them, or periods where they just dropped off in interest, and you sort of thought, oh, well, maybe that's not a thing in the end then. And then suddenly the fool rushes in the most dramatic way possible, you know, starting off the whole tarot, starting off the whole relationship, kind of knocking you sideways out of the blue, like, what the fuck? I thought you didn't care about me, and here you are with a marching band. Or, you know, I thought you couldn't give a shit, or you were seeing somebody else, and here you are with this elaborate love confession. But after a period long enough where you were about to move on or give up on the situation entirely. So this pisses you off, understandably, because it's kind of like an intentional thing. It's like they've got that ulterior motive going. They knew from the beginning they wanted you, but I get the sense that they're used to playing games with people, maybe because of that player past, if they had one. And therefore they've kept you in, as Xander would say, a holding pattern without the holding for a very long period, almost as a strategy, so that then when they reappear, the song coming on is Reappearing by Autolux, when they suddenly reappear in your life and go like, hey, how's about it? I'm going to take you out tonight. Be ready. You're like, the fuck, dude? Life has moved on. It's been years, or, you know, I thought you were doing this and I'm firmly doing this. And it may be incredibly inconvenient at the time that it happens and at the time they do reappear. So for some of you, this may even be, I dare say, a twin flame connection where you've had very long periods of fuck all going on that were almost strategic on their end because they refused to chase while they were figuring their own shit out. And they always had it in the back of their mind that like, no, I'm going to go after that person. They're my person. It's just I can't be bothered right now, so I'm going to leave it a few years or a few months or whatever it is. You know, you do you. Don't panic that I've said years if that's not your situation. And then moving into similar territory, we've got the networker, conveying information only for personal gain or spreading fear and falsehood. And we've got it with the magician, who's someone very in control of their circumstances, and the Ace of Pentacles, which is a declined offer, right? So it's again, it's this feeling of like your person is fully in control at all times, but they may present the idea that they're not going to offer you anything in order to manipulate you, possibly through your network, right? They may ask about you through friends, check whether you're still single at times, and, you know, maybe if you're sort of appearing to talk to people around them that aren't them, They may even have done the thing where they have a little bit of a private strop and say, well, I was going to ask you out, but I'm not going to now. You know, they may have said that to you. They may have kept it private. They may be laughing now if you're watching as a couple. But there will certainly have been moments where through your network or whatever, they've held the power in the situation and they've decided, no, they're not going to move forward just yet. They're not going to give you exactly what you want. They're going to make you sweat a little because that's their tactic, right? And I do feel like it's worked with everybody but you, but within your relationship, because you also were aware that they were your person, it's actually quite irritating. And it may have been something that once you were in a safe space with them and you knew that they had been interested in you the entire time, you might have bollocked them for, right? You might have said, what the fuck was your game for X many weeks, months or years? And in this retraction of this offer, and in turning up at my house at 3 a.m. with, you know, a guitar, but then also saying, you know what, I'm not really up for a second date for a while, I'll see you later, and then turning up again. You know, there's this definite pattern of like off, on, off, on. And it's not because this person is unsure of themselves, even though they may have communicated that. It's actually because they know that that's the way to keep your interest. I dare say it's like, it's not hoovering after discard, but it's that thing of like, ignore, hoover. Ignore. Right now's the time to pounce. Like, just when you lose hope, just when you thought all was doomed, here they are again, and they've got a brand new look, and you kind of can't resist them. Then we've got Don Juan down here, sorry. Again, they may have had a past that was a little bit like that, and that may irritate you, but I assure you that they are completely devoted to you, and that you, as I said, are the only sort of stimulation in terms of the body and in terms of stability of intimacy that has kept them, that has maintained their interest throughout however long you've known them, right? But the shadow is using the power of romantic attraction for private agendas. And the song amusingly that's come on is Give It Up by HTRK. So again, there's this like, will you just fucking give it up already and tell me how you feel either way? And they're going, no, I don't think I will. I think I'm attractive enough that I don't need to quite yet. This is definitely a person who knows that they're hot, or at least knows that they have qualities that you are attracted to. I feel like in the past, at least, or in the beginning of your relationship, they saw you as a sure thing. And that may have been incredibly irritating from your perspective because you were never really sure of their intentions. It's like they could take your involvement for granted, but when it came to whether or not they were going to tell you, yes, I'm kind of madly in love with you, it was like, we'll see, right? Because they know that that works on you. It may even be that they're not a player at all and they just knew that this was how to get someone of your station, someone of your reputation, your experience in the world, right? Sometimes we see somebody who feels borderline out of our league, and kind of the only way to maintain their interest is to be intermittent with our interest. That's one of the things explored in a fantastic book, The Art of Seduction, which talks about everything from sex to marketing in these terms, right? And that your person's way of marketing themselves was to sort of give you the offer, then pull back, then give you the offer, then pull back, to the point where you're now seeing their offer as kind of ephemeral. And this Queen of Pentacles in reverse is particularly like insulting in terms of the way that they may have interacted with you, which I'm sure if it's the case they've apologised for since, but there's almost a sense of like somebody, because this is about dependency and relying on others and, you know, issues of self-sufficiency versus being part of a group or a couple. But when paired with this and this, there's almost a sense of someone who's very attractive, very, someone who carries sexual authority, starting to make you an offer and then saying, you know what, hun, you want it too much. You're dependent on this. I'm going to go elsewhere. I think you want me so bad that you'll follow. Which obviously would make you grind your teeth and growl in rage, right? It would make anybody do that. To have some fucking fuckboy or that kind of energy come in and say, you know what, I know you want me and I want you, but you want this a little too much, so I'll be over here. It's like both extremely attractive and incredibly frustrating. And now the song is That's My Curse by Spirit Club, the lyrics of which are, you are the worst, but that's my curse, right? You've accepted this person is the fucking worst when they're in the process of seduction. You've accepted that they can be insulting, that they can lead you down the primrose path, that they can ghost you off and on, that they can be deliberately unclear about their intentions, that they can make offers and withdraw them, that they can be, in the one moment, incredibly romantic, and in another, just kind of a player energy. But also, with this song, and particularly its associations for me, you've sort of accepted that they're yours, right? You've sort of said, you fucking irritate me, but here we are. And really, that is the secret side smirk that they were wanting. That is the victory that they wanted out of this. They're not teasing you to make you mad. They're teasing you to guarantee that you will put up with their shit forevermore. And there is like a bit of a jammy energy to this. There's like a dastardly grin with it, where they can play the cad and they know that there is safety and security and stability in your relationship. Sufficient that you know that's not really their nature. You know that you will be able to rely on each other and that there is a connection between you. It may even be that this person initially was kind of an emotionally avoidant person and that you've coaxed them out of thinking that way, but they don't want to give away too soon that that's how you've made them feel, right? So they're kind of doing all of their old tricks, but with a sly wink, a sense of irony. I'm getting like, this isn't in the cards, but you guys may like swap memes, or you may both have an incredibly ironic sense of humor. And I think that's like, it speaks to this as well. It's like they're driving you up the wall intentionally. They're irking you, they're teasing you, they're sexually provoking you and then disappearing. They're romantically tugging on your heartstrings and then vanishing and then coming back. And it's also that when they finally give in to you and you into them, it's like this sense of overwhelming relief and laughter between you about what a fucking process it was, what a fucking journey, right? So yeah, it's actually quite lovely. It's just incredibly frustrating to start out with. I'm just going to move over this way. Apologise for any noise in that process, but it's a big table. Okay, so moving on into like more stuff about them / once you're in the established part of your relationship. Firstly, we've got teacher shadow, which is manipulating or abusing students or teaching negative traits and destructive skills. And that's with the King of Cups and the Eight of Pentacles in reverse. I think this person has a bit of an in-joke with you that they're teaching you life lessons, but they'll teach you shit that's absolute bullshit. Like, again, with this side smirking cad energy, like, they'll sort of, I think they'll open with like, let me tell you a little thing about real life, or, oh, you're so naive, and they'll put their arm around you and be like, let me just give you a few pointers. And you know that what's about to come out of their mouth in those instances is horse shit. But it's like a game that you have between you where you'll let them speak anyway, and you'll pretend to be this devoted student. So I don't actually, even if this person is a teacher, I don't think that it's in the negative. I think it's this idea that they're teaching you how to live because you're a naive little flower. And that's not the case at all. And in fact, overall in this relationship, I dare say they may learn more from you than you from them. But I think they like to keep up this dynamic. Again, with over here, it's like they like to be the person in charge of this relationship. And making a joke about them giving you a life lesson is a way to playfully move that forward. Play is big in this. You're very sweet with each other. You're very playful. It's all a bit of a game, a bit of a ruse. And I think perhaps in the beginning it didn't feel like that. It felt a bit anxious from your end because you didn't realise that you were playing the game. But then sort of as your relationship moves into a more secure place, it becomes this thing where you have this banter with each other and you're bouncing off each other all the time. So what is it that they teach you more often than not? Well, it's to fucking relax and lighten up about stuff, right? I'm hearing that Kif video, that hard work. That's the kind of Christian marching chant that he turns into a big band scenario. And there is that aspect of transformation with this person, that they can take something that used to be arduous and make it hilarious and fun and an excuse to party. And they're coming in with this like laziness energy, with kind of hiding of intention or mastery of emotion. And the overall sense is like, just don't work at it so hard. It's fine to be emotionally unreliable. It's fine to just not worry about your responsibilities and not play the king. Sit back with me, play the sloth for a while, right? Their favourite animal may even be sloth. But it's this sense of like, take it easy, when obviously the situation demands that you don't. They'll be there sipping some kind of fucking cocktail, telling you to get in the hammock with them. And I think, again, it's not a major thing, it's just a little niggle, all of these are. But yeah, there is that sense of like, just chill out a bit, yeah? And it may even be about stuff that is panicking them, again with the playful irony, but they're very much telling you like, you need to calm down. And I don't know, like just hearing the kind of conversation in my head, I think they're adorable. I think you don't want to love them as much as you do sometimes because they're fucking irritating, but there is a sense that they can grin at you and get away with pretty much anything they want. And yeah, it's just a lovely dynamic. It's really nice. If you haven't seen the movie His Girl Friday, it's very much the Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell dynamic in that film, of like Hildy, the hard-nosed newspaper woman, and Cary Grant just coming in, insulting all her partners, taking it for granted that she'll end up with him, and generally having the best one-liners, and then they end up together, you know, like spoilers, but it is that kind of movie. So if you're not into old movies and you haven't heard of it, do go watch His Girl Friday, because the sort of banter between you and the framing of you as being uptight because they're so laid back it's unreal is very true to your relationship. Because I don't think you are uptight. I think they just like to pretend that they're giving you a life lesson about chilling out. So next up we have Damsel, which is waiting for a knight to provide for you and seduction by romantic illusion. This one's interesting because I got a really specific scenario with it, and it's with 10 of Wands, which is overburden, and the 8 of Swords in reverse, which is freeing oneself from a mental position that one has imprisoned oneself in, right? And the scenario I got in my head was somebody who's on a night out and has got too drunk or maybe taken something they shouldn't have, and is drunk dialing you with like, help, I fucked up, I'm panicking, come and pick me up, I don't know what to do. And it may not be like that situation, because I know many people watching this will not drink or do drugs or anything like that, but there is a sense of someone who parties very hard or runs into things in a very Knight of Wands headlong kind of a way, and then goes, oh fuck, I've had an accident, or oh shit, I shouldn't have said or done that. And the person that they play the damsel in distress with always is actually you. And you come in almost like a responsible parent and offer to drive them home, or unpick the situation that they found themselves in, or take the glass out of their head, or, you know, whatever it is that they managed to have done. You kind of are the person helping them out, saying they're there, it's not as bad as you think, and, you know, holding their hair back while they puke, right? And I think that this dynamic, again, can be very playful in the aftermath. Like, they'll do something really stupid on a night out and ring you, but then it's something you can laugh about as a couple well into the future. I don't think it's a sense of someone being genuinely reckless and then, like, relying on someone else. I think it's more that, like, deep down, they know that you like to be the nurturer and the rescuer, and deep down, you kind of enjoy them at their wildest and their most unpredictable, and that's partly what you're in the dynamic for. So when they do something a little bit crazy, you will just sweep in and go, you know, you're a fucking idiot, let's take care of this. And by the way, sleep at my house, you know. Again, this might be an early stages of relationship thing, where you're kind of sorting them out after a night out, and they're very loving with you, and then when it gets back to strategy, or when they're not drunk or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm not loving with you at all, I'm going to make you work for it, right? But I think in their moments of, shall we say, vulnerability or happy weakness, it will come across just how much they do care for you and how much they seek you out as like a caring, caretaking figure, or someone who's going to rescue them from the stupid bullshit that they get up to. But in a very nice and appealing way, and a way that isn't too draining on you. It's just one of those things that might make you roll your eyes or tell the story the next day with your friends, you know. And then finally, we've got the Knight of Wands with the Eight of Wands in reverse, with the Destroyer coming up in the same placement as it did in the last pile, which is intoxication with destructive power, destroying others' dreams or potential. I don't think your person is a destroyer of dreams. I think what might happen, and this links back into this kind of, I've fucked up, help, rescue me energy, is that there's someone who rushes into situations. We have the reckless Knight of Wands, semi-fuckboy vibe already, any gender. And then we also have something about swift communication that is in its blocked state. I think your person may be someone with like a Mercury and Aries vibe who just blurts shit out without thinking about what they've said and occasionally lands themselves in very hot water as a result, and may trample on some dreams accidentally through saying too much, through spilling secrets that they didn't know were secrets, through framing something in a way that is less than positive without realising it. And then again, sort of calling you up or messaging you or coming home or whatever and saying, babe, I fucked up. I said a thing and I didn't mean to say a thing. And it's interesting that the mediator and networker are in here, because I actually feel like that's also your energy, and that you might come in as the diplomat to this fucking destructive bozo and do damage control after some of the things they've said. Or if you're in a group and they come out with some crazy shit, you might say like, that's a bit fucking wild and I think that what they meant is this thing. And they go, yeah, that's absolutely what I meant. Thanks, babe, thanks. You know, it's this cleaning up after the idiot kind of energy. But that's not to say that they are an idiot, because they can be very strategic. They can be very calculating. It's just that they're also maybe a bit of a party animal, or maybe someone who's had such a struggle with the body that they can be relatively reckless in their treatment of it. And then they come to you and say, I did a thing, help. You're the person I trust. Get me out of this one. And you invariably will say, okay, because I love you, but you're a fucking idiot, right? So I hope that was helpful, pile 3. I really did enjoy this one. I see this dynamic play out in my own life a little bit. If you liked it, please click like, please share with anyone and everyone you think would enjoy. Hit subscribe and ding the dong as well, because it keeps you up to date with everything that's going on. And just thank you for being here. And I feel like this connection can go very far, no matter how frustrating it was in the beginning. And I wish you all the best with you and your partner. And I hope that the playfulness and fun times continue. All right, catch you later. Incredible and esteemed pile 4. Couple of things to sort of say as I'm shuffling. Firstly, just before this pile, I was interrupted by the need to fix some jewellery. So it may be that jewellery is a particular thing for you and your person, that they get you some jewellery, oh nice, that was easy, in the early stages of the relationship, which is significant to you, or that your engagement rings or something like that, you know, sort of stand out in a way that helps you to recognise who this is, what this is about. I mean, obviously, if you at the stage of engagement rings, they're already a spouse, but there's also this sense of like, they could be a jewellery maker, or there's something to do with like a necklace gifted to someone, or a ring, or something before the relationship hits the marriage stage. And that particular artifact will be important to either you or them, right? So The other thing about the jewellery repair is that when I was trying to fix this particular necklace, I couldn't get something to go through a hole. This won't be as relevant for my women loving women, but I think you see where I'm going with that, right? Whether it's a one-time difficulty or it's something a little longer term, that's certainly, you know, indicative that this is your place to be, right? So, having said that, I'm going to shuffle these and I will speed it up and meet you on the other side. Pile 4. The song playing at the moment is Strange and Unproductive Thinking. That about sums up your person, am I right? Excuse me if you hear the chair creaking at all. I'm sort of moving around through this one. The first thing to say is this Aquarius card needs dealing with. And this energy, I know, it's like, yes, that's the Aquarian summing up statement. Your person may be dominant Aquarius or not. It's not really relevant, to be honest. It's just that this is the energy to describe them in the middle. But this, I know, has a double meaning, because you may get the sense with this person that their response to almost anything that anyone can tell them is, well, I know. Like, I already know. I know best. I know how to do things. Believe me, I know, right? And at the same time, we've got this very scattered, almost escapist, freeze response kind of energy in some circumstances. The quote in the book for this one, which I really like, is, "The best way to predict the future is to invent it." I feel like the person that you'll end up with, or have ended up with, is someone that could be broadly described as a bit of a space cadet, both in their interests and in the way that they think. They are very different to the rest of society. They're very well liked because Aquarius is a very sort of friendly and humanitarian energy. It's somebody who's got a very vast network, but also not necessarily a network of people who fully understand them, right? And I'm just going to read to you the summing up from this book of the Aquarius card, because I knew it'd be a more concise explanation of their interests than I could offer you just by the top of my head. So, Aquarius. The future, speculation, vision, speculative literature, science fiction, planets, stars, outer space, outside time and space, aliens, technology, computers, bionics, electricity, phones and other modes of communication, mental expansion, flights of genius, arrogance, flightiness, bisexuality, cross-dressing, optical patterns, pewter, silver, aluminium foil, taboo subjects, original ideas, free thinking, the unconventional, groups and associations, people of a like mind who may be of a different mind to the rest of society, bohemia, going against the status quo, marching to the beat of a different drummer, daring to be uncommon, appreciating the odd and unusual, and taking on a challenge, right? And this person may flit from one to the other of those things with such dexterity as to render you just incredulous. I do get the feeling that even you can't keep up with them, and that's why you love them so much, right? And it's no coincidence that the song playing at this time is one by David Lynch, who is pretty infamous for sort of abstraction and creating things or putting things together which don't really blend in a way that is fascinating to some people and a complete deterrent to others, right? it's this very Piscean way of going from one idea to the next idea to the next idea. And I feel like, as well as describing some of their interests and stuff like that, that description really covers that sense of it's this and then it's that and then it's this and then it's that. And like, bless you for keeping up, quite frankly. Like, this person sounds magnificent, but also like a lot to handle in terms of following their interest to the next logical point. And with that, we've got the eternal child archetype. So determination to remain young in body, mind and spirit, and the ability to see things with fresh eyes. Now, I think this is like childlike, bordering on childish at times. There is certainly an overarching energy of petulance in the things that annoy you about this individual. But also I can see that they've got a very innocent quality to them and a very sort of aspirational, awestruck wonder to them that really enhances the magic in the universe for you as an observer, kind of watching their face, watching the fireworks in terms of life. You see what I mean? So if that seems to describe your person so far, let's move on to some of the more negative stuff. So first up, we've got warrior, which is trading ethical principles for victory at any cost, indifference to the suffering inflicted on others, alongside Queen of Wands and Ten of Wands. I think this is less about inflicting suffering directly and more about overburdening other people, particularly feminine friends, relatives, or you if you're a feminine, without necessarily knowing that that's what they're doing, and doing it in quite a fiery, tempestuous, possibly even brattish way, right? I'm going to give you all this stuff to take care of because I believe that you can carry it, without necessarily examining whether it is something that that person can carry. Or indeed with the Queen of... sorry, I thought it was the Queen of Wands because of the fire, but it's the Queen of Pentacles. But it still fits that, you know, they don't necessarily check whether this makes that person happy before they ask this favour of them, or before they dump them with a load of responsibility. It's almost like, here's all the stuff that I can't carry. Doesn't matter whether you wanted to carry it or not, right? So expanding out through the lens of the Queen of Pentacles, sort of changing it slightly because of the initial misinterpretation of the card, which I apologise for. That may be something here actually, that they're easily misinterpreted, misunderstood, that they can say one thing and people agree to it, and then it's like, oh, I meant this thing, right? But with the Queen of Pentacles energy, this is specifically focusing on material stuff, on abundance, on work, on money, on carrying responsibilities in a financial and practical sense. And that actually will come up again later when we look at how they are in the workplace and with people that they work with or around. There is definitely a sense of bossing around other people and not quite realising the full repercussions of what that means for everyone else. And I dare say that if you're in a household situation and that you're the female of the household, they may give you too much to carry because they see you as a bit of a warrior, or they see you as someone who can handle a lot, but it's almost like too much, right? This is only for my feminines or feminine presenting. That may not be the case, but this sort of warrior with Avenger, yes, they get a little bit angry about stuff a little bit quickly. They may be over dramatized. We've started a very dramatic song in the background. But I also think that it's not necessarily an energy of battle. It's just of giving other people a lot because they think that they have the strength to carry all those things. So that may piss you off just in a practical sense of like, oh babe, you know, could you handle this, this and this and also do all my dry cleaning? You know, it's... and that's not to gender anybody into any particular role, because this can happen for whoever you are in the connection. But I feel like your person may piss you off by giving you too much to do, too much homework if you like. And in response to you saying this is too much, they may sort of say things like, but you're a warrior, you're tough as nails, you can handle anything. You're my sexy Queen of Wands type, or you're my stable, reliable Queen of Pentacles type, any gender. You can absolutely deal with all of this, or I thought you could. And then it's almost like a guilt trip of like, but I can't though, and I shouldn't be expected to. And it gets a little bit annoying. Again, annoying, it's not a deal breaker, none of these things are, but it may be something that you've picked up on or will pick up on in the future with this person. So then we have Avenger, which is resorting to violence in the name of a cause, alongside the 3 of Wands and the 4 of Wands. This one's interesting because, again, from the interest and from the sorts of things that come off this Aquarius card, I don't get a particularly combative energy from this person. I don't think that they're quick to start a fight, even if they're quick to anger. But the one area where that may not be the case is in the expansion of 4 of Wands, which is stability, home, and marriage. So once you guys are a very stable thing, once you have taken the next step into being a couple, or indeed being a family or a home, I feel like this person will defend any slight against that, or any threat to it, perceived or otherwise, with a particularly vengeful, scorpionic kind of an angle. They may see anything that stops you guys from expanding and conquering the world with this 3 as a direct threat, whether or not it is, you know, like, for example, if you both work and if there is a new challenge at work which requires you to be in a different location for a while, but you've just gotten hitched or you've just had a child or something, you know, you've taken the next step within the relationship, shall we say, whatever that means to you, they may see your job then as a threat and start to try and undermine your job, or like seek vengeance on the people in your job giving you the extra workload. And this is a misplaced anger and it's disproportionate, but it's not that they are an angry person or that they are vengeful. It's that they really want this security and stability and expansion with you so much that anything that gets in the way of it, it's like, thou art my enemy, you know? And this may make you roll your eyes and sort of tell them to get off their high horse, or indeed you may have to have difficult conversations about them backing off a bit, because there is this sense of like, no, I signed up for this as well as you, and there are other aspects to my life or to our children's lives or to our friendships or, you know, you name it, that are outside of this commitment to the relationship. And that they seem, I mean, songs coming on seem like the thing to do. They seem like the correct thing to do, right? They seem reasonable to you. But to this other person, fucking not so much, right? And this may come out for some of you, I'm getting that, like, if they get drunk or if they're, like, not themselves in some way, like they're on, they're coming around from anesthesia for some, or if they're on medications that take them out of their normal selves or whatever it is. But if they're not like feeling themselves, this stuff may come out with a bit more of an aggression to it that sort of startles you, but it's not coming from a place of aggression or a position of aggression. It's just that they want to look after you, they want to defend you. And actually this will come up again later on, where we have like almost the fierceness with which they love you is a bit of a challenge in places, because it seems like there's an undercurrent of like the threat of the relationship being taken away as their perception, not as a reality. And it makes them just like, I will defend my person to the death. And you're there low-key in the background sort of going, it's not to the death. Nobody's trying to take this away from us. Please stand down, you know, chill out. So then we've got child, orphan, feelings of abandonment that stifle maturation, or seeking inappropriate surrogate families. Because the Emperor is coming up, this is about control again, but it also, with the 9 of Swords, could be that your person literally has nightmares about a father figure or a masculine in their past related to some kind of PTSD or CPTSD. And they wake from it and wake you up and it's annoying, or they'll like mumble shit in their sleep to do with it and it pisses you off, but it's like in an adorable way. That's just for some, but the sort of broader message than that, if you like, the one that should apply to everybody, is that they want to regain control, having had a difficult time growing up in whatever sense. They don't have to be an orphan, but they felt on the outside of something, or they felt like the alien in the family unit, particularly because they do have relatively unconventional beliefs. And that may mean that they want an excessive amount of control within the relationship to ensure that nothing's taken away from them. But actually that causes them quite a bit of anxiety. Nine of Swords is the literal anxiety card, so it wouldn't surprise me if something slightly inconvenient about your person, if not annoying, is that sometimes they'll have panic attacks regarding their relationship to you, when again, like I said, there's nothing really at threat. And it's both like, oh, not this again, and very much an adorable feature that they care enough to get sort of overly anxious about the situation between you, particularly in the beginning when you first get together. Not that I'm saying that anxiety is an inconvenient thing to have, or that it's a negative quality in somebody. It's more just that, like, no matter what you do, it seems like you can't reassure them into, no, we're secure right now, it's fine. You don't have to do things to assert even more control than you had. I'm yours, you're mine, we're a couple, everything is safe, right? And there's that process of reassurance, almost like you would do with a young child or with an animal, where you're being physically affectionate and you're soothing and you're telling them that everything's okay. It's actually quite heartbreaking, it's very sweet. But I do think that sometimes they can get almost a bit too controlling because of fear that this will happen again. So when they're not in that anxious energy but they feel it coming and they want to prevent it, they can maybe get into this aggro energy or this overburdening energy where they know they can't carry everything, so they give a disproportionate amount of shit to you, or they know that the sort of anger and rage and vengeance is going to come on. So rather than get angry, they get controlling, or they get sad, or they ask you why it is you're doing a particular thing, or try and stop you from wearing a thing or seeing a person or whatever. And it's not that they're possessive, it's that they need to exert little bits of control in safe ways in order to feel control overall, so that they're not overwhelmed by this 9 in conjunction with whatever it was that happened to them. This could even be from trauma from a previous relationship where they felt on the outside of a partnership and like a bit of an alien with a particular person that they were in love with. And obviously that bond is not the same as the one with you, because you are their future partner, their future spouse. But what I would say is that it's possibly left a very long echo, a very big ripple in the water. The after effects are quite significant, and they may not even be conscious of that. So it leads them to do things that come off a little bit jarring or weird at times, and you might get a bit pissed off about it, or you might kind of eye roll and have to micromanage them a bit emotionally in order to prevent these outbursts of control or of aggression. But again, it's not, I'm not feeling big physical aggression. I'm certainly not feeling anything abusive. It's just that sometimes they'll exert control in strange areas, even like little micro stuff like how much toothpaste you're allowed to use, you know, so that they don't feel out of control in a bigger way, because they feel like an outsider, and it is quite sad. And I think at a root level, if you already know this person, you understand that and you sympathise with it. And because we've got the song True Love Waits coming on as well, I feel like it's almost like you have to wait for them sometimes to return to their former self or to calm down, or you have to wait for this like storm to pass of what it is that they used to be feeling. There's echoes of the previous pile in that sense, because there is this like recurrence of trauma. Or maybe it was pile 2, I can't even remember, but the last place we got the orphan child, it's this similar pattern of like, don't worry babes, I'll wait for you, you know, I'll wait for you to calm down, or I'll wait for you to feel safe, and I'm just here being very stable and solid as you are for me, you know. It's very sweet. And I feel for this pile, perhaps more than the other piles, or more than the previous dynamics anyway, that they really provide that safety for you as well. It might be that you had similar kind of trouble, and that sometimes they have to wait for you to calm down about stuff or to get out of a space of anxiety. And that sometimes you may feel even dependent on each other, or a bit, you know, like, are we veering into codependence? Is it a trauma bond type thing? And I don't feel that it is, because it wouldn't be such a long-lasting connection. and it wouldn't feel as overall relatively healthy and passionate in this same way. But there's a sadness to this song, and there's a sadness to this feeling of like, you're both, like, without insulting you, you're both pretty damaged by stuff that's happened to you, and you both provide a point of stability for each other, even if to everyone else in your lives you might be a little bit alien or a little bit weird or abstract. It's like you get it with each other, and you can take that time together and just recover from the demands of the external world and find sanctuary in the relationship. I'm just going to move over this end to do this side. So then we have the Ten of Cups in reverse. Don't panic if you're a tarot reader. The World in reverse, and the Father in the negative, which is dictatorial control or abuse of authority. Again, this is coming up as this person may have daddy issues. That's echoing twice. If that's not the case, they don't have to be a father or indeed a masculine. But this is the sense that if you guys have a child, or if you have like a pet or something that you're taking care of, even a plant or a household or whatever, there is like archetypally, there is a nurturing partner who is like the mother, in inverted commas, and then there is the more protective partner, which is the father, and both contribute to the overall dynamic of the quote-unquote child, or fill in the blank for you, by being a sort of different slant on it. You know, one protects with yin, one protects with yang. It doesn't mean that the relationship has to be heteronormative or that it has to be a parent-child thing. It just means that this energy is talking about the more protective partner. And I do feel with all this defense and protection energy over here, that is your person, and that you're much more in the kind of empress, nurturing, motherly flow kind of energy. And again, it's like, it's this need to protect is almost a threat to the family dynamic. And if you are literal parents, this could be an overprotective parent who is overbearing with a child in terms of their consumption on the internet, or in terms of how much they're allowed to travel and move through the world, because of whatever this person's fears are about that, what that will mean based on what it meant for them. So this can be an overbearing partner, or someone that, you know, in your relationship, you may be good cop to their bad cop. And that can even be with friends and stuff. You know, it doesn't have to be a kid, but there's a sense that something which was the kind of your equivalent of what I spoke about in the intro, like the white picket fence dream of your relationship, is threatened by how much this person is afraid of something going wrong. And that may mean that they give advice to child or to friends, or they try and exert different forms of control to the ones that you exert, in ways that are potentially restrictive or destructive. Again, it's not going to be a deal breaker. It's not going to split you apart. It's not going to be something that scars a child or a pet for life, right? It's just this thing that if there was anything to take the edge off the kind of equivalent of marital bliss that you'll be experiencing, it's that this person can't really trust in it, can't really trust in the product of it to be safe in the world. And the song that's come on is Tom Waits reading Nirvana by Bukowski with some music in the background. And I feel like it's that, you know, the poem describes the guy on the coach. And then he gets off the coach and he goes to this wonderful restaurant and he meets these pure and wonderful people. And then he has to go back to his journey in the snow, pretending almost like nothing happened. And it's this thing of like, this person is defending the purity of this situation. They're defending the cafe, they're defending the snow and the sound of the tyres in it, but almost to a point where like the truck then can't set off and they can't return to normal life, because they're so afraid that they'll lose that experience. Again, it's an echo of this, where it's like, they love you so fucking hard, dude. They love you so much that they're terrified of something getting in the way, so they get in the way. Okay, moving on to like more of their work and career and financial life, we've got Bully. conceals deep fears behind verbal and physical abuse. And we've got the Eight of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles. So again, with them feeling kind of fearful and that coming out in a less than healthy way, and you kind of maybe doing a bit of damage control as their partner, as to the people that affects. But I feel with this being Ace of Pentacles and 8, that it's a workplace thing. So your future partner could be a boss, a CEO, someone managing a team, even like a teacher or somebody just in charge of a group of other people. And they may have a reputation at work for being a bully, but I don't think that they necessarily are a bullying type. I think, again, it's this sense of they fear what they have to lose, so they can get a bit aggro with stuff, again, with the threat to your relationship. And I don't think it's as strong an energy as that Avenger thing when it comes out. And I don't think that that's common when it comes out. But with bully, it's like they can be a little bit maybe... they can have a bit of a supercilious attitude towards other people who can't give them what they want. Or they can be a bit patronising to people that are working alongside them as if they're working below them. And I think this comes from a fear in their own standing. And it may make you just sort of want to advise them to tone it down a bit. And, you know, they may get too big for their boots is what I'm trying to say. But again, I don't feel it's a dominant characteristic. I think that it's just if we were picking stuff about your person because we had to pick stuff you don't like, you'd say, well, sometimes the language that they use with colleagues is a little bit uppity, a bit bullying, a bit accusing. They give other people too much to do sometimes. But it's not really going to be a massive issue. Also, because the song now is Elliott Smith with Say Yes, just because of personal associations with this and the bully thing coming up, there may even be a thing if you do get married that it's like either that they sort of ask you again and again and again and you're not ready, and they sort of not bully you into it, but they persuade you into it maybe a bit earlier than you're ready for. Or that they kind of tell a story to co-workers in particular of, oh, I asked so-and-so, and then I asked again, and then I asked again, and here we are, and I got my way. And that's obviously not the best way to frame a relationship, even as a jokey story. So that may make you feel a bit put out. But again, it's not like that's what happened, or that they see it as them persuading you, or even indeed that they had to ask you more than once. It may not be the truth at all. But I feel like they need to say this to other people to sort of show that, like, you were hard won, like you were this thing that they aspired to and that they looked at from afar as being perfect, and that they really put the work in for you. Because there's almost a sense with this person and with this 8 that, like, they think other people are going to accuse them of not working for their station in life, or not deserving their partner or their family, or, you know, not deserving to expand through the world and make this stability happen. Again, perhaps because of childhood issues. So it's like they have to almost brag about how they got there in a way that might raise your hackles as their partner, and a way that you might privately contest. Again, the songs are coming in thick and fast with correct titles, but now we've got Love Without Possession, right? You may want to say to them, you know, the way you told that story made me feel really objectified, or it made me feel like you were being possessive, or you were telling other people an untruth. And I actually think that if you came to this person with that, they would be devastated. They would hate the idea that they'd made you feel that way. But it's just that in the moment, in that sort of bragging, fronting, flexing energy, they kind of have to make it out like, oh yeah, they didn't want to really be persuaded, but I got to them in the end, just like I get to all things in the end, haha, you know. It's almost like a false arrogance. So I think that may put you back up, but it's really not as bad as all that. And I think, again, we're only mentioning it because we have to pick apart this person who is very pure, very revolutionary, full of ideas, full of childlike wonder. And with a character who's got that wholesomeness to them, it's almost difficult to extract things unless we're talking about individual statements, or that one time this happened, or that one thing they said to our kid that was a bit out of line, right? It's not that they're bad, it's that It's that this stuff irritates you if you had to pick something, yeah? Okay, so getting to the last one, and possibly my favourite actually, we've got lover in the shadow, obsessive passion that harms others, and self-destructive devotion. This entire song, I think, is about devotion. And then we've got the devil, which is obsession and possession and being, bonded to a connection in a way that feels constricting at times. And then we've got the Nine of Cups, which is somebody's wish come true, right? You are your person's dream come true. They think you are the absolute pinnacle of what it is to be human and incarnated on earth. They cannot believe their luck that they've found you and then got to you, which is why they sort of brag about the process. It may even be that they bring you up in conversation in ways that you don't like, just to be able to fucking talk about you because they adore you that much, right? This isn't a negative thing to have, even in the negative. It's just saying that, like, their weakness is almost that they love you too much. And that can lead to a bit of sexual possessiveness or a bit of sometimes being sexual when it's not appropriate to can be a devil thing as well, like being so horny about you or so like enamored with you that they want to do stuff that isn't appropriate for the time or place, or that they feel sexually competitive with other individuals around you because they're scared that something as wonderful as you will be taken from them. Again, taken from them, right? This is a theme with this person. But it is because of this love. It's because you're their dream come true. You are their true indulgence. You are the thing they used to write about when they were little. You're absolutely everything to them. And if we're going to pick out somebody's flaws and say that their flaw is that they sometimes love you too much, it's like, and what? Great stuff. Like, fantastic that this person cares this much. And I don't think it'll ever get into territory where they're stopping you from being around others or where they're getting possessive in the traditional sense. I think it's just that they're a bit obsessed with you. They might even have been someone who during the courtship process was a bit full on, like, again, writing about you in the diary or like stalking you online a little bit or trying to find ways to bump into you just to be with you. And I don't think that it's creepy when it's mutual, right? We have this weird societal thing that if it's not mutual, it's stalking, but if it is mutual, it's romantic. Look at any romantic comedy released in the last 30 years, and you can frame what one or more of those people are doing as being kind of creepy shit. But I don't think it's that. I think it's that they just really fucking love you. And you may even laugh about it together. That you've had this new start together. Again, new playlist, not mine, and it's switched over. So like, although I do love Mitski. But yeah, it's like you've had this new start, you've had this new chance together. But leading up to that point, it's like they desperately, desperately wanted you and they would do anything. And it's kind of funny to tell the story. Again, with this recounting the story to other people. It's almost like, let me tell you how I met my future spouse and did everything I could to be like their knight in shining armour and demonstrably be the right person for them, to the point where they just went, all right, give it a fucking rest. I'm in love with you anyway. Chill out. And that is a dynamic, I think, that continues in your relationship. It's like they must, not only they must have you, but they must maintain you. And it causes them a great deal of anxiety if they think that you won't stay with them. But I don't think that's infidelity from your end or anything like that. I think it's just that they fucking love you so much that their worst nightmare above everything is to not have access to you anymore. And so they get themselves into tight corners and they wind themselves up mentally over crazy shit, right? The song is The Only Heartbreaker. They don't want to break your heart, but they certainly don't want you to be the heartbreaker in the relationship. It's everything that they're doing here kind of comes out of that, to the point where you may need to tell them to simmer down sometimes, because it is a bit of an obsessive love. But I think partly that's because you are on the same wavelength and you really do see this unique individualistic component to them and see it as not just contrarian but rightly revolutionary. and not just a little bit abstract, but dreamlike and wondrous. And they know that you see that in them, and they see it in you too. And it's fucking beautiful, man, honestly. I'm even a little bit jealous. But yeah, I think your main problem with your future partner is that they're going to be the pursuer to a point where you're like, all right, shit, you know? And that they're going to like run themselves in rings around you, trying to maintain something that isn't going anywhere anyway, yeah? I hope that was helpful. If you did like it, please click like, subscribe, ring the bell. All of these things really help me in terms of the algorithm, in terms of getting seen by more than just you. And if you did really like this one, you want to share it with a partner or maybe a like-minded friend, please feel free to pass it on as well. But I hope to see you in my next reading, and take care, Pile 4. Pile 5, if you pick the Aquarian Tarot, this is your pile. Let's get shuffling. Pile 5. Well. Some of you will already have spotted the Leo card just down here. I will, and by God, your person will, am I right? I feel for many of you that you already know this person, you're just here for confirmation of what they're like, but for some of you haven't met yet, and boy oh boy is there a story to tell, right? Yeah, firstly to say is this Leo energy, it's very loyal, it's very flamboyant. First impressions is that your person doesn't really give a fuck about how other people see them, right? I had to refer again to the book for this because I knew there was a Mae West quote for this and I just couldn't remember what it was. And the quote is, "It is better to be looked over than to be overlooked." And I think that sums up this counterpart, this future spouse figure, right? We've got somebody who doesn't really care how people assess them as long as they're getting the attention and assessment in the first place. And that's coming out in various areas. It's like, I don't care how you look at me, just please look at me. And even more so with you, because obviously as their partner, as their counterpart, you are the person that they most seek attention from, right? And sometimes that might be negative attention, but that's kind of part of the dynamic of your relationship. If you're seeing this Virgin card and you're kind of wondering what the hell is with that, if you met and this person was decidedly not a virgin, or you were decidedly not a virgin, know that the attribute for it is maintaining symbolic purity of heart and spirit. So we're just talking about somebody who has a very pure will. Again, I will. Maybe even somebody who dabbles in intention, manifestation and or magic, but that's not for all of you. It's just going to pop out for some, right? But we're talking somebody who is pure of heart, whether or not that purity is in a direction which you particularly enjoy within a given moment, right? It's this sense of childlike innocence and naivety in everything that they do. They are somebody of purpose, but that purpose may not be to magnificent ends all the time. And again, sort of with that, we have the trickster energy. We have the fact that they pick 2 cards instead of 1, so they want to dictate how we speak about this already. There's an element of that fiery Leo control coming in there. But also this is, you know, similar to an earlier pile that mentioned Aquarius. This is somebody who is unconventional, revolutionary, and it says transcending convention, stuffiness and predictable behaviour. I sense that to other people your person is very unpredictable, but to you, the Leo energy is actually quite reliable in its jumping around from one thing to another. Like you sense a pattern in your person, whether or not the rest of the world sees them as madcap bullshit behaviour, right? You can sense what's coming, and that's part of where your bond comes from, because they feel reassured by the fact that no matter how off the wall their actions or their statements or whatever it is that they're doing for whatever attention in the moment, you sort of understand the core of them, you understand their solidarity, their loyalty to you, and you can sort of see things coming a little bit. Like, you know there's a bend in the river even if you don't know what it is that's going to be on the bank, right? So I do think there's a very sort of, I don't know, it's just a very sweet dynamic between you, where you can kind of see this person coming a mile off. And I mean, that's an appropriate expression, because for many of you, I did check the sound before this pile actually, and I think that's partly to do with your person being perceived of as loud, maybe even a little bit boisterous, rambunctious, that kind of thing. And you can probably hear them coming a mile off, but that doesn't mean that everyone else can anticipate their next move, whereas I feel that you, as their partner, kind of can. And that's caught them off guard, and it's very, it's like enhancing the intimacy between you, okay? So that is something that you will love-hate about them straight off. Now let's go into the things that will niggle you more directly, right? So first we've got dilettante in the shadow, which is pretension to much deeper knowledge than you actually possess. And it's with the Ten of Pentacles and the Six of Pentacles. So this is, when it comes to this person establishing themselves in the world and sort of establishing legacy, especially, whether or not you choose to have a family, this person sort of solidifying their money, their reputation, where it is they live, etc., should take give and take, right? But what I'm getting from this in combination is that this person likes to seem like an authority figure on things, but doesn't necessarily enjoy the give and take of putting the work in to get to that point. If you were in the prior pile, I can't remember which it was, but that had teacher up over here, there is a similar feeling of like, they desire to be an authority on the matter so that everyone will stroke their beards and nod thoughtfully and say, oh yes, I agree. But actually it's not necessarily that there's research or practice gone into that process. And with dilettante coming up as a vibe, your person may be somebody who has a great deal of hobbies, but not really skill in a particular area. And I say it with love, right? They may be somebody who plays every instrument, who does lots of creative things, who does lots of sporty things. And in all of those endeavours, they are middling. But by God, do they enjoy themselves as they're giving it a good try, right? And that's kind of what you love about them, as well as something that pisses you off. It's like, you like the variety and enthusiasm that they bring to any situation. You like the gumption that they have to just fucking try shit. But I sense that beyond the point of just trying it out to start with, they don't really have much commitment to much, right? It's kind of incredible that they've committed to you, because they're not somebody who follows through necessarily with all the things that they try. And there's even a bit of an echo in pile one of that, of sort of being many selves and trying on many hats. But for this person, I don't think it's a change in identity as it was with pile one. I don't think there's somebody who shifts their appearance a lot or moves from job to job necessarily. I think it's more in the sense of what they do in their private life, and indeed in their sort of dates and hobbies and things with you. It can be very sporadic, which we'll see later, but it can also be quite pinballing from one thing to the other without rhyme or reason, and not really finishing anything they started. Yeah. And I'm getting like the Pavement song that's just come on, Spit on a Stranger. It may be something that they like or a song you're fond of, but with the word pavement, I'm sort of getting that this person will fall flat on their face trying something new. I'm thinking of me learning to rollerblade for the first time and just falling on my head several times over and getting up and doing it again and getting up and doing it again. And your person has this determination that is at once admirable, but also kind of like, Jesus, maybe stop trying, you're gonna hurt yourself, you know? There's this sense of giving it a good whirl, even if you know your shit, or even if it doesn't turn out so well, or even if everybody tells you to just stop doing that thing now, please. Maybe in their teen years, they were the person with the loud drum kit, sort of pissing off all the neighbours. That's kind of an archetypal example of this sort of person, although it may not apply to them directly, but you get the vibe, right? It's somebody very loudly and enthusiastically doing something they might not be amazing at, and not really seeing it through, but they kind of want to be known as the person who plays the drums, or they want to be known as the person who skates, in my case with that anecdote. And sort of getting to the end of that process is not something they'll necessarily do all the way, right? Moving on, we have the mother archetype, any gender, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily will have a family together unless that's something you want. But the shadow of this is smothering or abandoning children or instilling guilt in children for being independent. And then we've got the Ace of Wands and the Two of Cups together. I get that this is actually sort of a sexual thing, sort of not. So the Ace of Wands is a very passionate card. In a relationship reading, it does indicate people who are very sexually interested in each other all the fucking time, and the sex is really good, right? And then we've got the Two of Cups, which is a sort of friendship card and a companionship card, and a card of working together, but it can be just in a friendly way. And with this mothering vibe, I get the sense that in the same way that they sort of flip from hobby to hobby and it's difficult to kind of track where they'll be next, your person may be like two people in the sense that they're either coming at you sexually in like a really fierce, fast, total opposite of mother energy kind of a way where it's just like, they're on it, you know, in whatever way I can express that. They really fucking want this. And it might even be like a bit of a wham bam thank you ma'am experience with it. But then suddenly they'll switch it up and there'll be more of a friendship vibe and a mothering vibe. I get the sense that like when they're not in fuck mode, they can sometimes be in nag mode or sort of following you around the house, telling you how to do things, again with the wanting to be a figure of authority on something, right? Sort of following up your every move in what they consider to be a friendly and thoughtful and companionable, collaborative way, but which you consider to be, you're not my fucking mother, will you please shut up now? Until it gets back into this hypersexual mode, and then it's like, all is forgiven, all is forgotten, and the vibe changes completely. And it may leave your head spinning a bit, sort of not knowing like which you're gonna get next. The song that's coming on is Fifth Fret Distant Cousin. Fantastic song by a great band, I think. But it changes up quite a few times within the song, changes pace, even changes topic within bits of the lyrics in a way that's quite hard to follow sometimes. So I think this is echoing this thing of like, all right, but which fucking person am I dealing with? My mother or my partner? You know, like, just make it clear. And the sort of funny thing is that that's completely the opposite of this tricksterish, childlike, playful energy that we've got down the middle, right? It's not necessarily in their nature to be someone's mom. So then it's even weirder when it comes in and the relationship sort of goes from extremely hot and sexy and enthusiastic and wondrous to being a little bit like, all right, get off my back though, yeah? And I don't think it's because this person perceives that you're doing anything wrong in particular. I think it's more that they just want to be that for somebody. Like they want to be nurturing for someone else or recognised as a nurturer. And unfortunately, it's sort of mischanneled with them into the quality of like being fearful on your behalf or being angry at whatever it is that you're doing, not being quote unquote the right way. As like an act of love. It's like one of their love languages to follow you around and nag you. But then their other languages, like this weird extrovert, 10 million things at once, fuck me now energy. So It's very difficult to sort of tell where we're at any given point in time, right? But potentially very fun as well, because you could have been in this thing of, you know, they're hanging over you while you're cooking and telling you that you're doing it all wrong or whatever. And then the next minute you turn around and their clothes are off and they've got a whip. You know, it's like, I don't know what the fuck is happening, but suddenly I'm okay with it, yeah? Okay, so moving on, we've got servant energy in the shadow, which is using the lack of money as an excuse not to move forward with life. And then we've got the Tower and the Knight of Cups. Again, I see this as something specific to your relationship dynamic and not a general quality of this person. And what I was picking up with these in combination is that the Knight of Cups is somebody who's very romantic, very sort of big in the gestures in a romantic way. In the classic use of this card without these, they're a smooth talker, they're somebody who'd take you out for an incredibly romantic and well thought out dinner date and then, you know, going off to watch fireworks or whatever the fuck afterwards. It's all very kind of Hollywood romance at this end of the table. And then when you come over here, it's like everything crashes and burns and it's always because of a lack of money. Now this could go in kind of two directions on the same theme. Either your person is somebody who wants to do all these big romantic gestures and wants to shower you with gifts and affection in the form of gesture and time and all the rest of it, but they actually don't have the resources to do that, so it always crashes and burns. And you know, they'll have taken you camping somewhere and then you'll find that you're lost in the middle of nowhere with no resources or food, that kind of a thing. Either it's that, or it's that this person actually doesn't like forking out for things like big romantic dates. So when they have to cancel on you because they realise they can't break out the big guns to sort of, you know, woo you further or apologise for something or whatever it is, they'll use the excuse of, oh, just cash is really difficult right now. Like, maybe we shouldn't go on that romantic holiday. Maybe we shouldn't go for this meal. Or maybe if we do go for a meal, we should make it a Mackie D's or something a little bit more affordable. And you might be there going, are you fucking serious? That's the least romantic thing I can think to do. But to them, it is a very sincere thing where they just don't want to put their material resources into something that they feel is more ephemeral. This could be somebody with that sort of Venus in Taurus quality of course I love you, I'm here, aren't I? You know, that's not necessarily very indulgent to a partner, but sees other love languages like time spent with you or things done around the house to be the way that love is most adequately expressed. And your idea of it might be more in the realm of like gifts and grand trips and things. In fact, these things in combination, I'm actually thinking of an ex-partner who, for those of you who know me, will remain unnamed, who booked a very romantic getaway for a week for me because I'd had a really rough time. And then when it came to the time of the getaway, realised that they couldn't afford it, cancelled the whole thing, and we had a week at home, which was just as stressful as any other week, right? So it's this same sort of quality of like, I think I'll break out the big guns, oh wait, no, I won't. And that's either because they don't want to financially or because, you know, they try and then it sort of switches up and they realise that they can't fucking manage it, okay? But again, it's not something that's going to like massively piss you off. It's not going to be something you really fight about. It's just something where if they do it a couple of times, you might roll your eyes and go, fuck's sake, I hate it when you do this, man. It's really annoying, right? Okay, I'm just going to move over here to do the next half. So over this side we have the engineer in the shadow. Your person may actually be an engineer, I got that vibe with this pile, but not for everybody. It's just that if you're into that, it could be a possibility. And it's reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. Some of you are already laughing, right? This person, although they are very passionate and very unconventional in some ways, may be very mechanical and mechanistic in some other areas. For example, the way they think about emotion and money regarding gesture and the way that they separate sex from other things going on around the house and don't see that one can affect the other, right? And with the Knight of Swords in reverse and the Three of Pentacles, this is talking about collaboration. And this is talking about somebody who's sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's kind of If it was in the upright, it'd be someone very sort of speedy and very good at communication, etc. When it's in reverse, it's almost like a lack of appreciation or a lack of acknowledgement or fears about lack of acknowledgement. So it's kind of like they're looking at everything in this, I want to say this, but it's not in like a slurred way. This is just, it's applicable for some of you, but they can have a bit of an autistic spectrum mindset about emotion sometimes. They can be very black and white about the way that they understand emotion and contribution. And I think sometimes they are collaborative with people in relationship and out of it, because this is a work card as well. But then it's like if they don't get recognition for being part of the team, if they're not lauded and appreciated, particularly by a partner, woe betide that motherfucker, right? And they can get very technical about like, yes, but I did this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and bring up shit that you haven't remembered for like 5-6 years. And you sort of go, oh, well, I didn't realise you felt that way. But to them, it's all very clear cut and it's cogs in the machine moving in one direction or the other. It's like, I'm friends with you today, I'm not friends with you today. Or I'm going to keep this checklist of shit that you've done. And it's not actually in a way where I dislike you or anything like that. It's just, if I feel underappreciated, I'm going to make a list, you know? It's, and again, with that sort of stagnant feeling that was round here, where they understand relationships in a sort of methodical fashion sometimes, it can come over as being a little bit cold. But it's not that they don't appreciate other people working with them. It's that they want to be appreciated in equal measure, which again is echoed in some of the other piles. So you may be somebody who's picked more than one reading today. Then coming down here, we've got the victim in shadow. So it's playing the victim for positive feedback in the form of pity or inability to maintain personal boundaries. I don't feel like your person is the kind to play the victim. I mean, maybe for some of you, but it's not an overall vibe I'm really picking up on. But what I do feel is that personal boundary stuff, right? We've got the Hermit in reverse, which is about getting back out there or being with friends almost to the point of excess. And it's interesting that the Hermit comes up again down here in a way that sort of speaks about this. And then the Five of Swords, which is like not dealing very well with a conflict or not dealing with excess very well, or having to evaluate a situation in a way that is like really a fucking mixed bag. And I think what this is that they don't have very good social boundaries. So then they evaluate their social life to be possibly worse than it is. And it's not actually that they're surrounded by psychic vampires, or that there's anything depleting going on, or that this person is this thing and that person is that thing, or that in telling them to maybe be a little bit quieter in a restaurant, people were like attacking them as a person. It's more that sometimes they're so excessively in community and they spend so little time completely by themselves that they can unknowingly get burnt out by the amount of contact that they're in. And then they sort of come to you as their most trusted person and say, for fuck's sake, I'm so sick of so-and-so because they're doing this, that and the other. And in reality, you might want to say, I think you're just tired, or I think you're just spending way too much time around their house and they might be a little bit pissed about that. Or, you know, I don't think they meant this thing this way, but I think maybe that you've just been with them solidly for 36 hours and, you know, you're testing their patience, because maybe for other people, like you included, it's more normal to have some introverted time, some extroverted time, some time alone, some time in a group, right? But there's an imbalance with this person in that, and they're always with the group. This may not even be like a natural predilection for them in terms of something they want. It may be that they feel that they should be with other people out of a sense of responsibility, but then it's like they're doing it and they're feeling really tired. And for some of you, there's also a scenario where they're doing something like shift work and they want to put themselves on the rota more so that things are more stable in this sort of Pentacles energy over here and here. But then it's like they're offering up another 10 hours in that week and they're fucking knackered, and you're saying, well, yeah, but it's almost like not registered to them, even despite their analytical brain, that will completely tire them out and drain them, and you know, it's possibly not the best thing to do in that situation. So you may have to swoop in, you know, in wherever I see somebody who wants to express nurturing and it's misdirected, I also see somebody who potentially has a very nurturing partner, because you tend to sort of pick out in others what it is that you want to be or provide. And I think you are quite a nurturing energy to this person, and it may be you that has to come in and say, look man, I don't think so-and-so was, you know, targeting you personally. I don't think they're a hater. I don't think that your work is absolutely wank and you need to quit tomorrow. I think actually that you just did too many hours, or you just spent too much time with this person, or you're just sort of so social at the moment and have so many demands that you're seeing it in an unrealistic way. And when you put it like that to them, they might go, oh yeah, fine. And then it's like drama over. You know, Leos are very good at catastrophizing and making things a little bit more dramatic. You know, they have a flair for the theatrical in good and bad ways. So it's this Leonic energy of like, the world is ending, and then you say, I think you just did too many hours, have some pizza. And then 5 minutes later, they're all right, but you're completely fucking knackered, right? And there may be this kind of pattern between you that like, it almost becomes draining for you as well, that they don't know where their limits with other people really lie. So then moving on to the last quality, we've got Hermit in the shadow, which is withdrawing from society out of fear or negative judgment of others, and refusing to help those in need. I think it's that refusal, partly because they are burnt out, right? And then we've got Angel in the shadow, which is acting innocent or angelic to mislead others and falsely claiming to be in touch with angelic guidance. If your person is some kind of spiritual practitioner, that may hit home even more. But it's not for all of you, it's just for some, because there's a wide variety of people watching this. But with the Star, certainly this person is like in the limelight. I mean, again, it's a very Leonic energy and a bit of a trickster energy to be the centre of attention at all times. But particularly for the person that you'll end up with, I do feel they could be like a social media star, or someone who thinks that they are. Someone who's on Instagram every 5 seconds, somebody who has a lot of friends who all have very different ideas about who this person is. Somebody indeed that carries strings of people that are convinced that they would be best friends with this person if only your person had more time. And that might not be the case. It might just be that they're one of those people, and I have one in my family, who, like, everybody that meets them kind of latches onto them and presumes that it's a very intimate relationship and a deep friendship. And what they're interpreting is actually just that your person is very upfront about their past, about their private thoughts. You know, they don't really have the concept of privacy. So they kind of pour stuff out to a newcomer, and this newcomer thinks, wow, we really connected. We had an instant bond. We became instant best friends. And meanwhile, your person's like, I don't fucking know that person. Which may make you laugh, and I think that's why it's coming up, because if this is someone you already know, you'll instantly fucking recognise that and be like, yes. This is also the person who's like on a bus or waiting in line and has somebody tell them their entire life story, and that person is forever changed, whereas your person just toddles on like, huh, that was a cool story, I'll forget it now, you know? But yeah, there is this star quality, there is this magnetism to them, which may even be part of why you're attracted, but it's like everybody is drawn to their light, their expressiveness, their honest and upfront nature. But the interesting thing is, with Emperor in reverse, this is like, it's a bit aggro, it's a bit aggressive, it's a bit pissy about not fully being in control of things. And with the Hermit and the Angel in combination, overall I think this quality is that your person doesn't always want to be involved with others, because they do experience this burnout that we talked about before. And they can't always be asked to be everybody's bestest fucking friend when they didn't get a say in how intimate the other people think that they are with them, right? They may want the fan following and the attention, but then when it comes to actually giving back to hundreds of relationships, it's just out of their scope of possible influence, right? It's, even with the best will in the world, your person would not be able to keep up with all of the people who want to keep up with them. And I think that that leads to a cycle which you kind of observe because you see this person in private and nobody else really does, where they might ghost, or they might just like be offline for long periods of time, or they might say no to events, or they might just drop people for long periods of time without an intention to hurt anybody, but sort of with this thing of, I need to fucking withdraw now. I need to refuse to give you my energy because I need to replenish. I need to go into hermit mode. But because your person is actually deeply kind and quite childlike and quite giving, I feel that they can't always express that this is what they need to do. So then they describe it as being like, oh, I had guidance that I needed to go off and do this, or, oh, you know, I'm really sorry, but this terrible thing has happened and I can't possibly be in touch. Or something that gives them this like angelic front, where other people are like, oh, I completely understand, take as much time as you need. And then 7 years later, your person rocks up like, hey, how about that lunch? And people are a little bit confused. Because by that point, it's understood that it was a falsehood, that it's just that your person doesn't really draw sufficient boundaries, and they had to come up with what they thought was a very good lie, right? This may be someone who chronically cancels on plans, or dips out of conversations, or just disappears to everybody but you for long stretches. And what I'm feeling is that they're always loved, they're always invited back into the circle, but that low-key, it pisses other people off and pisses you off as their partner, that they're constantly in this pattern, and that it could actually be very easily solved by just saying to any of these people, hey, I'm a little bit burnt out at the minute, or I'm really busy with work, or whatever it is. Could we maybe meet up at a later stage? Or even, and I think this is something your person would find hard to say because they want this attention and love, but even your person sort of saying, hey, I know that you felt a massive connection with me, but I've actually got other connections that I'm really prioritizing right now, and I'm not sure that I felt quite the same thing that you felt. So maybe we could just tone it down in terms of how much we're in contact, or maybe we could hang out in a different way, or whatever it is. There's also a thing here, because it's relationship specific, that your person could be someone who has like an online fan club of people that are interested in them, or that are sort of circling them like sharks a little bit, sort of waiting for them to be single. And this isn't to say that your person encourages that in the slightest, or that they would ever be unfaithful, or that there's any trouble between you in this partnership. It's more to say that in the perception of other people, they take your person's friendliness and, like I say, this intimacy of information, perhaps as romantic interest, and then they're left feeling a little bit put out when they find out that your person is happily married, or is in a long-term partnership, or is monogamous, or whatever it is, right? And again, they have to come up with an angelic excuse, or a thoughtful way of saying, yeah, I'm going to fuck off now, I'm going to dip. But your experience of this may be that you want them to say, actually, I'm really in love with my partner, and sort of explicitly name you. Because I think sometimes, I've been in this boat, and I've been on the other side of it as well, where people have mistook my interaction for interest, shall we say. But it's difficult for you as partner to watch, but it's also difficult for them to draw these boundaries without the thought of maybe losing friends, losing connections, or having people accuse them of leading others on, which is not something they're doing remotely. I just think that, like I say, they're just very open, they're just very virginal, they're very funny. They may have been a sort of class clown figure, and people are so enamoured with this that they think that it's like a seduction process almost. And when they don't name you, it's difficult for you, but if they do name you, they risk you becoming the brunt of that hate, or positioning you in a place where you experience difficulty because they have got these fans. Or even in some cases, if they are like an influencer or something, if they name you explicitly, they may lose followers, and they're sort of a bit like, I don't know whether I want to do that, but there's a potential for that pissing you off, because obviously, as the most important person in their world, and you really are, by the way, they absolutely adore you, but you kind of want them to say, hey, this is my person, this is my most important thing in my life, or this is who I live with, or, you know, for some of you, they don't actually name you in things like social media, even after the point that you're married. And you might be going, well, fucking hell, we've lived together for 2-3 years, or, you know, we got engaged 7 years ago, or whatever it is. And there needs to be some kind of recognition of that. And again, having been in that position and being sort of someone's low-key bride, right? Someone's wife benefits without the benefits of a recognition of a relationship. I would urge you to maybe talk it out with this person and say, look, I need you to be more upfront about the nature of this with other people. And I think that's a reasonable relationship requirement. But where it is just a friendship thing and people misconstrue their attention, I honestly don't think any amount of chatting to them about it is going to fix it, because that is partly a problem with other people's perception and with our concept culturally of what level of conversation denotes romantic interest. So like I say, this may be someone who's very magnetic with public or with a great deal of friends, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a flaw on their part. It just means that different people have different ideas of what it is to be intrigued by somebody versus actively pursuing them, right? And because your person so enthusiastically pursues everything, hobbies, people, thoughts, demands for attention and recognition, you know, it can be that they sort of also pursue other people in a friendship sense, and it's misconstrued and pisses you right off. But again, I don't think it'll be like cause for argument. These are all just little niggles. I think it's actually a really beautiful relationship, and I hope that you can see just as much as I do reading this, that your person is very magical to be around, and very their spontaneity, as mentioned at the beginning of the reading, is something that you really treasure about them, and something possibly that you need. I get the sense that you might be their opposite in that sense, that you're very stable and structured and perhaps have strong Virgo, and this is a massive contrast to your energy, which I think will just yield incredible results for both of you. So the best of luck with that relationship. Let me know if this resonated down in the comments. Please like if you enjoyed it, subscribe and ding the dong if you enjoyed as well. Share with anybody that you think would appreciate the reading, because all of this helps my algorithm, helps me to be seen, and therefore continue to make content for you. And however it goes, like, really enjoy this relationship, because it's beautiful. Your person is gorgeous and they might know it, but that's okay. Take care, Pile 5. Pile 6, hello, that was good timing song-wise, wasn't it? This is Jesus and Mary Chain, Why Do You Want Me? Some of you may be fellow Encino Man fans, pretty niche, or you may just have a relationship dynamic where either one of you in the early stages wonders why the other one wants them, right? Also, if you pick this deck, this is the Viéville Marseille Tarot. If you are interested in it and you haven't seen it on this channel before, I do a series, which I will link down below, called Marseille Minis, where we do like an A to Z lucky dip of readings from just words out of a hat, using this particular one from 1650. Anyway, without further ado, let's do your shuffle. Pile 6. Your person is fucking adorable. It's such a sweet, gentle energy. But with hidden sides. We'll get to that. Yeah, I love it. And I love the fact that this song, this Wilco tune, is on at the same time as this, because the song has a very gentle, grateful, calm kind of quality to it, I think. And this is exactly what I get from your future person, right? But also, with the title of the song, with it being Love is Everywhere, Beware, for some of you, like when you first meet this person, you'll almost be overwhelmed by the idea of them. Maybe it could get a little bit obsessive. There's another pile about that coming from the other side, but this is not it. But certainly there's like a sense that once you've met them, their presence will be everywhere. It will be all pervasive, etc. No matter whether you're in a different connection, whether you're occupied with something else, whether it's inconvenient to be completely in love with somebody at that point. And if that's not true for you, for some of you, you are watching this during the courtship phase. You have kind of just met this person, and therefore love really is everywhere right now. And you've stumbled on this reading because you're sort of in that space of like, I cannot stop thinking about this person. Everything I look at, everything synchronistically is lining up with some kind of love story. So like, I just need to get love readings out of my system because I don't know how to get rid of this energy. And that's the interesting thing about your person, is that I don't think they're aware of how much energetic power they carry just by being themselves, because they're quite a meek character in some ways. They may present in an extroverted way, and they certainly have some sexual stuff going on that's maybe not so meek, but you know, as a general sense of them, I would say they're more introverted than extroverted, and it's not immediately evident that they carry this ability to make people wildly obsessive about them. But in your case, you very much are, and it is mutual, I must say that up front. But it's really beautiful the way they sort of, to quote somebody that I've loved very dearly, all the songs are about them, you know? Everywhere you go, it's kind of reference to this person. And maybe even for those of you who haven't met this person yet, that is still true. You still have a fairly firm idea of who they are already, just because of the amount of stuff that feeds back to you in a synchronistic way and makes you feel good to sort of attribute to them. I know with my own story, without going into too much detail, I was very clear on many of the attributes of my person right from childhood. And they were things that were not sort of even acknowledged in a romantic way, because I would have been too young to be thinking about that. But, you know, at first I wanted a best friend that was like such and such and wore such and such, and thought about these things and maybe wanted to be this when they grew up. And then as I got older, this developed into a sense of, oh, maybe these are things that I would like in a partner. And then as I moved through life again, it's sort of through the partners that I had, the things that I didn't want from each relationship that wasn't right for me kind of got added to this invisible list of qualities. And it wasn't something I was consciously thinking about when I met the person. But certainly, like, you know, there was a moment where they opened a door and it was like, oh, fuck. All of this stuff was about you. All of it was, you know, and at various stages in my life, I did have an idea of the person that I wanted to end up with in a much more concrete checklist kind of a fashion. And I guess we all go through that phase where we're a bit entitled about love and relationships. But when I dropped some of those and realised what the essentials had been that were core to my nature as well, and core to the things I looked for in people growing up, it just very much was one individual. And I think for many of you, you're having that experience, or you had it before you met this person, or you're sort of in the throes of accumulating those things mentally. And they may not be direct manifestations of like, I want this person to be on this kind of salary, doing this kind of job, with this kind of friends, and wearing these kind of colours, and all that sort of, you know, extraneous bullshit in the end. But there's certainly a sense deeper than that of who they are. And it may even sort of surprise you when they turn up and it's like, oh, of course you're a such and such. Or of course you look like this, or of course you lived here. because that just makes so much fucking sense for what I've been putting together in what, you know, Esther Hicks would refer to as the vortex, right? For those of you who aren't manifestors or whatever, that may not sit right with you, it may rub you up the wrong way, but that is the closest thing conceptually to what I'm talking about, you know. So let's move on to more accurate details about this person. Like, we've spoken about the fact that they're very much for you and vice versa. We've spoken about the fact that they have a gentle energy, but what else? So they're a mentor, the light attribute of which is passing on wisdom and refining a student's character. This doesn't have to mean that they're a literal teacher, but I get the sense that they're a caregiver, or that they're sort of higher in station than some other people in a way that has a nurturing and mentoring quality to it. So for many of you, they're professional mentors, or they're in care work, or they do some kind of like SEN type stuff, or they're just kind of figures that other people look up to en masse. They may be like a figurehead within a family once you guys get together, and if family is right for you, you know, they may become this kind of matriarch or patriarch of the group. And you may see this echoed already in the way that they sort of live out their friendships when you first meet them, that everybody kind of comes to them with stuff, or that they guide others in a particular way. And it doesn't have to be overt, but it's a distinctive thing about them that I think sets them apart maybe from other partnerships you've had. We have that paired with water element and sensing. This person is very in touch with their intuition, whether or not they acknowledge intuition to be a thing. So irrespective of their beliefs, they're very much somebody who can rely on their gut feeling if they tap into it. And it's a big if, which we'll come to later. But yeah, they're empathic. They can be described as an empath if you're comfortable with that language. But certainly they pick up on things with others. They have a sympathetic sense with others that's quite unusual, quite distinctive. And it's not just the general social picking up on stuff, it's really quite a talent in their case. So again, in their core attributes, before we get to any of the negative stuff, this is who they are, right? Moving on to stuff that will piss you off or drive you up the wall about your person. Firstly, we have storyteller and shadow, which is making up tales that harm others. And this is with 6 of Cups in reversed and the Chariot. So my feeling on this combination of things is that it can go one of two ways, right? And this really depends on whether the first thing I'm going to say is a deal breaker for you. Because if you're at this reading and this is your future spouse or sort of counterpart or future partner that we're talking about, and I say something which really strikes you as like, no, that violates my boundaries, that's an issue I couldn't deal with, then it's not applicable to you in this reading, right? So anything that's like crossing a line with you, just discard it, and it's not part of it for you. This is a very general reading, speaking to a lot of people. But for some of you, for 50% of this particular bit, right, your person in the early stages of getting to know you may tell you untruths about their past and about what informed who they are today that give them a sense of control over their relationship. So this may be very minor in terms of like telling you stories about stuff they've done or people they've met or whatever to impress you. Or it might be quite major stuff like telling you falsehoods about their childhood, which give you a certain impression of what their love style, what their attachment issues, etc. might be. Or indeed telling you stuff about their past that's false, that excuses some stuff in their present, which they're not so proud of. Like I say, for some of you, that is a deal breaker quality. And if that is the case, it's not true for you, because we're talking about niggles, not stuff that's, you know, going to break up a relationship before it starts. But like I say, for 50% of this particular pile and this group, that is what's going on. The alternative interpretation, if lying is an absolute no for you, is that this person sometimes socially tells stories to sort of gain control within a social setting. And this again speaks to the fact that they're naturally a bit more of an introvert, and they kind of want to come up with wild tales because they think that that's why in social circles extroverts have more kind of recognition. I think maybe there's a misunderstanding that more outgoing people equals more friends, and we know that that's not true. But for your person, you know, the social stuff, or indeed like relating to colleagues, etc., may have been an area of some difficulty, and they perceive that to be because they don't have the badass stories about holidays they've gone on or wild things they've done or whatever. So for them, particularly when they're talking about their youth, their childhood, because of this 6, they might sort of make up stuff that's a little bit more flamboyant than what actually happened, and you may catch them out at this, or you may later find out from friends that were there at the time that this aspect of a thing wasn't quite like they told it. But again, it's just something that's like a bit of an eye roll thing of like, oh, so that wasn't the full story, was it? And not a like outright lie that would be a betrayal to you, yeah? So then we come to wounded child in the shadow, which is blames dysfunctional relationships on childhood wounds or resists moving on through forgiveness. I don't think this is a big deal. Again, I think this is less about being a wounded child and more about their ability to forgive others. Queen of Pentacles and King of Cups in combination is somebody who, when they feel wronged or when they have done wrong and don't want to admit it, can be very stubborn, very Taurian in the shadow, a little bit sort of, I'm not fucking telling you my feelings, I'm going to stonewall now. And not stonewalling in a way that's abusive, but just in a kind of, I have no response to that, so I'm going to fold my arms and sulk in a corner, and you are not getting it out of me what I think went on here, and I'm certainly not forgiving you yet. So this person, in a very minor sense at home, may hold a grudge. They may have a bit of a strop when you fall out. I don't think that you'll fall out often because their nature overall is very compassionate, and I think that they seek to understand others more often than not. But if there ever is a point where you do differ and they get a bit stroppy, I think overall this is speaking to their attitude of like, humph, you know, they get into a full-on harumph and they don't share with you what it is that they were thinking or feeling, and they certainly don't forgive very quickly. This may be the sort of person who has to take a time out and go for a walk or see some friends or whatever before they get back to you on an issue, because they're a little bit incapable of just forgiving straight away if they feel wounded. And sometimes when people are very empathic, it comes from having a great many wounds in their past. I don't know whether that's true. It might be for some, maybe not for others. But if your person is a little bit sensitive in that direction as well as in the direction of others, then it may be that this is speaking to that quality of sensitivity as being something they get a bit sulky about. With the water element, your person could have strong Cancerian elements in their chart or be a Cancer. Possibly Cancer with some Taurus, but again with the King of Cups, that speaks to Cancerian, Piscean or Scorpionic energy as well. So this is, you know, and you've had the Chariot, which I don't like it, but traditionally it's Cancer, isn't it? So yeah, it could be something that pings out for you if you've discovered this person already, or when you discover this person, that they have like a Cancer ascendant, a stellium, or they are a Cancer sun. Moving down here to the magical child, which I think is a very dominant characteristic in the light with your person as well. They are indeed seeing the potential for sacred beauty in all things, and they do believe that everything is possible, bless their hearts, right? But we're looking at the shadow because we're looking at what pisses you off. So the shadow attribute is pessimism, depression, disbelief in miracles, and believing that energy and action are not required for growth, right? The Three of Pentacles in the upright will be collaboration. It's in reverse here, which is interesting. And then we have the High Priestess. So this is interesting because your person has, as spoken about, a sympathy and empathy with others that borders on like deep intuition, right? They have a good gut feeling where relating to other people is concerned. But I get the sense that they don't always apply this to themselves. And it's kind of like, this is for a minority, but I'm going to say it just because it made me laugh when I was meditating on these. If your person is a tarot reader, a spiritual leader, or a spiritual thinker, and spirituality is part of their mentoring, they may be somebody who can sense absolutely everything about another person, including the colour of the great Auntie Annie's shoes when she died, and or what they ate for lunch last Tuesday, But when it applies to themselves, they cannot, for instance, sense that they're taking a massive misdirection in their overall life, or that they've made a huge foible, or that something glaringly obvious to everybody else, it's not leaping out to them. So this is like a misattribution of that sensory energy if they are deeply intuitive, empathic in a magical sense, right? But for those of you where it's a little bit more of a mundane use of this quality, this speaks to them getting in a pessimistic and occasionally depressed and anxious mode and disbelieving in miracles because they didn't collaborate with this high priestess energy, i.e. they don't use their gut feeling often enough at home, even if they use it at work or with you or in friendships or whatever. So it's almost like you get really frustrated and sort of throw your hands in the air sometimes that they're not seeing the obvious about themselves, because I feel like their energy is always directed outwards and into other people. And this is a beautiful quality, one that may have attracted you to them in the first place, but can get very fucking frustrating when someone refuses to see themselves, I mean, we've got the vampire up here as well. This is someone who cannot see their own reflection, right? They can look at other people very clearly, but when it comes to seeing themselves in the mirror, it's sulk time, or it's time for them to completely misinterpret the whole thing and not believe in the miracles that they see everywhere else, right? So this is, it's less of like a problem and more of a thing that you almost wish that they could get a handle on for them, because you're there watching from the stands, frustrated as they kind of fuck up in areas where if they had tuned into their gut feeling about a thing, or indeed if they'd followed their gut feeling through instead of being dependent on what the societal beliefs around something are, they might have gone down an easier path or had an easier time. Okay, I'm just going to move over this side, and just as Nine Inch Nails kicks in, we're getting to the vampire archetype. So, vampire in the negative: depleting others for psychic survival, chronic complaining, or codependency. The codependency may be a little bit true because we've had Queen of Pentacles in this reading and she speaks about that. But she's not in the reverse, and your person isn't coming across as massively codependent. So if that is like a minor quality in them, it's only in the sense of like, laughing it off like, man, you can be needy sometimes, and that's it, It's not going to be that they're actually reliant on you emotionally, financially, physically all the time in a way that's draining. That said, I do think this vampire thing speaks to their energy dynamic with others. I don't think that they're an energy drain or like a Colin Robinson type figure, like they're not a psychic vampire. They're not somebody that exhausts everybody in conversation. In fact, I feel like talking to this person is enriching as an experience more often than not, and that people do flock to them because they so easily understand others and sympathise with other situations, and they seek to understand as well. They have a genuine interest in other people. What it speaks about instead with this strength and King of Wands is that they can be a little bit demanding when it comes to their relationships with others in terms of mutual understanding, right? Because they so deeply understand everybody around them, when other people don't have that same quality, they can see it as being cold, and they can get a little bit, they can complain a lot about the way that other people relate to each other, because they don't understand when other people can't be as empathic as they are, that's like not always a thing, that's not just something that everybody has. And indeed it may be that this person doesn't see their deep sympathetic and empathetic qualities with others as being a gift particularly, and they just think it's something that everyone should do. So they may come home and get really pissed off and talk to you in a way that's quite draining of you about how shit it is that other people aren't, performing right. And I don't mean that in a judgmental sense. I mean it in the sense that when they see injustice happen in minor ways at work or in friendships or whatever, they're not a gossipy person, but they will absolutely wreak vengeance in a sort of more private, more introverted way upon anyone that they perceive to be exploiting other people. And with this vampire energy, that that manifests as them complaining to somebody else about stuff that they can't change in terms of other people's decisions. So you maybe, if they are in like a caring job, with all the love and respect in the world to them, because they are a wonderful person, you might be fucking sick of hearing about how everybody in their lives is not looking out for each other. When your interpretation is, well, that's just the way people are. Like, don't let it get to you, boo. Let's, you know, have a meal together. Let's go and do something fun. And they kind of can't get out of that headspace of like the tragedy of others. This may also be somebody who's easily depleted by stuff that they see on the news or on social media, or, you know, all the sort of false media narratives circulating that are very intentionally draining on us so that we will purchase remedies to that particular drain, you know, like make us feel like shit so that you can charge us for things that will make us feel better again, right? And they may even see that sort of capitalist cycle play out in other places, but then they're not quite cognizant in the moment that that's happening to them and that they're being manipulated, or that the picture of things on the news is a lot bleaker than the reality, or that indeed injustice happens and it's kind of part of the cycle of life in a way, that death and life are equal things. And it's kind of, it really brings them down to the point where that then brings you down, right? They may be somebody who's very social justicey. They may be somebody who like eats vegan, who's an advocate for this, that, and whatever sorts of people, who goes on lots of marches, etc. All of these things are good things, but sometimes as their close personal friend, ally, partner, it gets a bit much on you or on other people very close to them, that they're in such a negative energy about what they see happening in the world, and that can be quite draining. And sometimes I think, you know, even though they are loving and wonderful and very sort of generous with others, you might want to shake them. You might want to be like, for fuck's sake, we're all living in this world. We're all watching it go to shit a bit. I'm hearing the song History of Bad Men play out, right? There are bad men throughout history, but we can't change that. And you're getting a little bit too sad about it. Like, please snap out of it, right? You may despair that they can't get out of that energy. And I feel like with the codependency low-key vibe, like I say, it's not a massive or dominant quality, but their dependency on you may be in the sense that they come to you to sort of change history or to tell them that there's not all these bad people in the world, especially when they're out of alignment with themselves, and that makes them not believe in miracles anymore. And they want you to kind of Disney up their worldview, and you're just not here for that all the time, right? It's not something that you always have the energy, the blood, if you like, to be responsible for. It's like, feed on me to an extent, dude, but then I've got to make my organs work because I'm still alive, yeah? And again, this person isn't a psychic vampire, but I feel that anybody who is drained by the world around them to a disproportionate extent can run the risk of draining others. And it's this King of Wands. It's a very demanding person, and I don't feel that your counterpart, your future spouse, is demanding, but I feel that the area they place demand is in this perception that the world can be a cruel place, a very animalistic place, and they need someone to fix it for them because they get overwhelmed. I'm seeing actually the moment in The Fifth Element where Lilu has just absorbed all the stuff about war for the first time, and she's crying on Corbin, saying like, I don't want to save the world, you know, why save all these people who are just going to kill each other? And it's kind of on Corbin Dallas to be like, look, there is love, there are things worth saving, that you can continue, please get out of bed, please come with me to the park, eat something, you know. It's that kind of vibe, and I'm always bordering on tears in that moment of the movie because I love Lilu so fucking much, right? So intensely, and I really feel for her that she can't contemplate like the amount of violence and injustice in the world, and she's so vulnerable in that second, even though she's the most powerful being in the universe, right? She is God, but she doesn't see it. And I feel like this is the thing with your partner. They don't recognize their own power, and sometimes it's a fucking ball ache for you to have to be the person who comes in, even if you're not feeling so hot, and says, yes, we have this history of war, but I love you, please save the universe because we're all going to die if you don't. Or please, you know, resume life, because staying in stagnant energy because you're overwhelmed by this is not going to do any of us any favours. Okay, moving on. We've got Destroyer Shadow, which is intoxication with destructive power, destroying others' dreams or potential. And we've got it with the Seven of Swords and Judgment in reverse. Sneaky, sneaky. There's something under the surface with your person, is there not? I find it interesting that we're describing somebody very compassionate and very sweet, almost in a childlike energy in some ways, like over here. But then we've also got Vampire, Destroyer, Queen. These are very powerful and quite dark, gothy archetypes, right? I think this bit of your reading is describing that your person is kinky as fuck. I think that part of the way that they cope with the outside world is to have a bit of a destructive energy in bed, and that might be self-destructive or it might be destroying you. You take your pick. I'm reading for a lot of people. I can't tell you whether they're sub-dom or switch, but what I can tell you is that this is in the negative because it's almost something that like can't be translated to other people. With this 7, it is a very underhanded behaviour. It's behind closed doors. It might be something you actually like love and relish about them. Not actually, absolutely was the word I was looking for, because obviously if you're with them and marrying them, you know they're kinky as fuck, right? You know that that's how they get rid of this particular energy. But I think the frustration here is that like, it's almost like they come over as too sweet sometimes, and you want to be able to express like, no, that they're not all sweetness and light, but it's difficult to say that in society without explicitly saying, you know, they destroyed me in bed yesterday or whatever. Or difficult to say like this person is capable of great anger, great darkness, etc., without labelling them in some way that some sort of more fearful people would construe as abusive or as a little bit fucked up or a little bit too out there for them or whatever. For those of you who keep private and don't want to talk about this, and it's not important to you to like convey to your friends that this person is not always sweetness and light, giggity, I think this is more about kind of what do I want to say with this? It's like it can get too destructive, and with this Judgment reverse, it's like when they don't heed the call of their intuition, they can almost take that energy out on you in a way that is super fun and amazing, but also like a little bit depleting to both of you, again with the vampire archetype, right? They may be kinky as fuck, but then you both can't function for a day, or there's not adequate aftercare happening or something along those kinds of lines. And for some, this isn't for everybody, but for some this is just speaking about a bit of a dichotomy in nature that's not necessarily a sexual incompatibility with you, but which baffles you and makes you go, the fuck, dude, where this person is sweetness and light and has a very caring job and is a mentor to all and is very empathic, etc., etc., but they're into particularly violent or misogynistic porn, or there's something behind closed doors that politically is not actually in alignment with all of these beliefs we spoke about up here. So it may be that like they have a particular kink or fetish which is completely the opposite of all the qualities described. I mean, if you feel comfortable commenting, by all means do, but I get the feeling that if that message is for you, you instantly know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to like list fetishes to sort of see whether it's one of those, because that won't resonate with everybody, but there's something about this person sexually that is not at all in alignment with the way that they put themselves across to the world. And in some cases, maybe not even fully in alignment with you, just to the point, not where you're incompatible, like I say, but maybe to the point where in the courtship phase, you're a little bit like, whoa there, didn't fucking expect for you to come out with that. Can we maybe talk about preferences, you know? I've experienced this actually with at least one person where somebody can come across completely one way and then throw you for a loop sexually, and it's not necessarily because you're not up for those things, it's just because you never in your wildest dreams thought that they would come out of this person's mouth, right? Or be something that that person would just do if you're not into speaking during and something just happens, right? So I'm not going to get too explicit, partly because I don't want to get banned, but you get what I mean with this row, right? And it's very much in that arena, I think. And then finally we get into Queen, which is the shadow attribute, becoming arrogant when authority is challenged, or being controlling and demanding. And that's with the Knight of Swords and the Four of Pentacles. Four of Pentacles is about keeping shit to yourself, or piracy, stashing, keeping your love and resources to yourself out of fear. And then the Knight of Swords is about somebody rushing in, somebody being quite impulsive, impetuous, maybe something that's moving a little bit too fast. The sense I get with these in combination is the sort of becoming arrogant when authority is challenged, and it's an echo of some of the stuff that we saw in the rare occasions where you do fall out over here, where they're a little bit petulant about it and they might do a bit of stonewalling or a bit of like, I'm not going to forgive you right away, where I feel like they can inhabit Queen energy, because they do, you know, with Vampire and Destroyer, sometimes they do get a real sense of their personal power, and it's not always channeled in what most people would construe as a light way, you know, problematic language, but whatever. Maybe it's that they feel more powerful when they're in this sort of dark, kinky mode. But in any case, there is an acknowledgement somewhere in them, any gender, by the way, doesn't have to be female, that they have this queen-like quality, that they do have some sense of power, even if it's only when they're in dynamic with you. And I think that sometimes if they're in that mode and they feel challenged in the way that we described before, they can be very quick to kind of shut down and block everything off and stop the flow of love, stop the flow of even material things, or like time, energy. Like they will absolutely rush to a point where they're like, hold on son, I'm going to shut you right the fuck down there because I'm a queen. And this is in your niggles, because it will take you by surprise. Because from everything in the reading up until about here, I'm betting that you didn't expect this person to be like, I'm royalty, shut the fuck up, right? But I think that when they're pushed to their limit, and limits will vary depending on your person, and triggers will vary as well, and I think this is when they feel triggered, they will very quickly say, excuse me, I'm the queen in this household, or I'm the queen in general, right? Or I am inhabiting queen energy, goddess energy, Adonis energy, you know, fill in as you see fit, and I'm not going to stand for this, and I'm very quickly going to shut this conversation down. And like I said before, if they do feel challenged, this is the sort of person to go take a walk or stay with friends for a while, or you know, it's an avoidant conflict management style rather than entering into discussion, which is very interesting and also very frustrating, because it's the complete opposite of their normal communication style, which is very upfront, very detailed, very sympathetic, very understanding of other people, and communicative of everybody's different quirks, attachment styles, histories, etc. So it may really throw you for a loop on the rare occasions where they do this, because you're like, well, you're the person who talks to everybody. You're the person who understands what everyone's going through. How the fuck are you the one being childish and shutting down? But I'm sorry to say that very occasionally this is something they will do. And this is something that you will recognise as their quality to sort of mark them out from other people that may have been caring, that are not like your person, your one, right? Because we're in this reading with the assumption that you will sort of end up either with a primary or with like one monogamous partner that you stay with for a long time. And this is that person. And it may be that you've been with people before who are caring, intuitive, helpful, tell a good story, you know, spin a good yarn. But the things that sort of mark them out as like, oh no, it's this person, is that they're a fucking freak in the sheets, and also that they can get into this, excuse me, I'm queen of the world, you will shut up now, when provoked, and it's very swift and it's very surprising for just how kind, sweet, compassionate they actually are. And again, this came up in one of the other piles, but your song that's just come on is That's My Curse by Spirit Club. So it is this thing of like, when they're in this mode, it's like an eye roll of, you are the worst, but that's my curse. You know, you're taking the rough with this move with this person because you adore them so much, and vice versa, that it kind of doesn't matter that occasionally, when provoked, when triggered, they act like a bit of a kid, you know, they go into a bit of strop mode. Because you consider them to be your blessing and your curse. You took them on. You fully knew all the aspects of their personality before you entered into a higher commitment, whatever that means to you. That could just mean a relationship for some of you who don't want to commit that much. But whatever it is, you know, whether it's relationship right over to engagement or having a kid or whatever, before you got to that higher point, you fully knew all of this about your person, and you went, I think these moments that piss me off a little bit, or these frustrations that I have on your behalf, or this sort of bending of the truth over here, and this mad kinky shit that I didn't expect round here, and the crying at things on the news, all of this is worth it, because these are the idiosyncrasies, that make the person. And now I'm thinking of that wonderful speech from Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams is talking about his ex-partner and saying that one of his fondest memories of her was her farting in bed and waking herself up. And, you know, Matt Damon's character is sort of going, how is that your favourite memory? And the point is that when you're very deeply in love with people, which actually is the whole ethos of this entire reading and a good way to wind up everything, right? But when you're that intensely in love with somebody, even the stuff that is like bad about them is the stuff that you love and remember and think, oh, that's my special person right there. Fucking idiot. So with that, and with that sentiment, and with this lovely person over here and your beautiful relationship together, I'm going to wind up this entire reading and say thank you, Pile 6. And please click like if you enjoyed it. Please hit subscribe if you haven't, and ring the bell, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Share with anybody that you think would enjoy this process as well. And, you know, anything like that helps my algorithm. I'm looking to be seen at the moment on these sort of above ground channels, so please do help me out. But if not, really enjoy this wonderful, magical connection filled with childlike wonder and empathy and deep love, and I will see you around the bend.